Tick tock, time to rock. All these people here blaming AP. Let's see. AP, you're always late. AP, and we're proud of that. Note, this time, a rare instance, was neither my fault nor AP's fault. It was the fault of kids trick-or-treating and my wife being outside handing them candy and me needing to wait till she comes back in before we can go live. And then me standing in the door going, come on, I'm supposed to go live. Hello, today. Zzz.
Zzz.
Zzz. Anyway.
Always blaming the children.
It's always the children.
The children.
We're trying to go live. Meanwhile, all these parents out there using their kids as human shields against us going live.
Yeah, that's precisely what they do.
Boy,
What they do.
what a day, what a day. Happy Halloween, everyone. Happy Halloween. Just make sure I sent this out. Let's see, did I send it out? All right, I sent the link out. Hey, AP,
Yes.
have you heard of Dawa? Dawa. How do you say it right? Dawa.
Darwa. Darwa.
Yeah, say it.
Darwa. Darwa. Darwa.
You're good at making the weird Arabic sounds that regular English speakers can't make. Why is that? You're just good at that, or is it like Turkish has similar sounds or something?
No, it's because I practiced it when I was a Muslim.
Okay.
I actually went to this thing. I went to this one teacher for quite a while. Not for quite a while, but maybe for half a year or so to learn to read and properly pronounce the Quran. And that's kind of what I picked up there.
And now you use it to make fun of them. That's pretty messed up, man. That's pretty messed up. They sit there and teach you out of the kindness of their hearts, and then you make fun of their weird sounding language.
It is funny because it was totally free, and I went in there and learned it, and now I'm just... Well, that's the way of the world.
Wild, wild stuff. All right, so we're going to... you heard of this Dawa stuff? Dawa? So... Basically, ladies and gentlemen, I've been telling everyone, hey, you are all lucky. You are all lucky to be living in a world right now where people respond to dawah pretty seriously and pretty effectively. And any of the arguments these guys bring up, there are a bunch of people ready to expose the arguments, and it's even causing the dawah guys to renounce some of their favorite arguments for the past few decades, the perfect, miraculous, dot for dot, letter for letter preservation of the Quran. They abandon it now. Still plenty of Muslims out there who believe it. They don't realize there's a reason their Dawah guys have abandoned that argument. They've been exposed on it. The scientific miracles argument, popular for decades. Muslims now admit that it has been debunked and they don't use it. Which Dawah guys do you still find using perfect preservation, dot for dot, letter for letter, or the miraculous scientific insights of the Quran? Who do you still find using these arguments?
Me.
They've been exposed, ladies and gentlemen. They've been exposed. So you're living in good times for exposing Dawah. But if you go back a few decades when people were converting to Islam in the 80s or 90s, people were not ready for Dawah. They were not ready for a guy coming in and saying, hey, here's all this proof. Did you know this? And did you know that? And Muhammad the Quran's filled with scientific miracles. Muhammad's the greatest man ever. And Muhammad's prophesied in the Bible. People were not ready for that. They had no clue how to respond at all. And people converted. We're going to watch the story of one of these guys. I forget which, not sure exactly when he converted, but it was back in the day. He's talking about the time of Ahmed Deedat. So that's a while ago. But this guy converted to Islam. He was about to get married, or he did just get married, something along those lines. And then after a while, he got his wife to convert. He was saying he wanted to be a Baptist preacher and wanted to go to seminary and so on. And then was introduced to the powerful Dawah musings of Ahmed Deedat. Ahmed
Deedat. Yes. As Al-Dawa pointed out, as Al-Dawa clearly said it, the scientific miracles has been debunked.
Debunked. It got debunked.
Debunked. Yeah, I say it again. It's been debunked. Yeah. So that's what he said. It's not what we are saying. So there you go. Don't go for that again. Don't go for that ever again, or
And
else.
the weird part is, and you'll recall this from that video, but Ali Dawa said that he converted to Islam, even though he had some sort of like loosely Muslim family or something like that. He converted to Islam because of the scientific miracles argument. And then he acknowledges that it's been debunked and says he's still a Muslim, but for other reasons. But I don't know why you'd have this, because we're about to look at this guy's reasons for converting to Islam. There are some of the stupidest things anyone could possibly say ever in the history of humanity. Like, I understand, but again, I understand if you were in the 80s or 90s and you were confronted with some Ahmed Deedat arguments, and you're not in the habit of going and seriously being able to look these things up, and you're inclined to just believe some nonsense that someone's spitting at you, I understand that. Wow, this is amazing stuff and converting, but like you expect at some point you realize, hey, that was a stupid argument that I bought into, and yet Islam has become such an important part of your life, because that's what they'll do. As soon as you get in Islam, it's okay, now you go to the mosque, now you got to be part of the community, now you got to dress a certain way and speak a certain way and all this. And they make it, they saturate your life with Islam so that it becomes very difficult to separate from, even after you find out the arguments are bogus. Anyway, we're going to go through and take a serious listen. Maybe he has some brilliant point. Take these
Well,
first couple super chats, and then we'll
to
jump
be
in. What's up?
fair, nobody has ever argued that you have to be smart to join Islam or be smart to stay in Islam. So
That's true. No one in the history of humanity has ever said that. You are correct. Goat Hub says D Wood should have AP's intro, but zzz instead of That'd be funny. Zzz, zzz. That would be a good one.
we can do that.
We can do that. That can be arranged.
Inshallah.
Got the super chat there. No comments. Thank you. Abraham says, AP, I had no idea you went live yesterday. I blame Russian, Jewish, Chinese collusion for suppressing your notifications. That's what
Oh
they do.
yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do.
That's what they
It
do.
might be because of the conspiracy, or it might be because I scheduled it kind of at a very odd time with a very basic title like David Wood and AP Live, and then only changed it later on, like 5 minutes before we went live. So it was all a little bit.
Or it may be because you keep randomly attacking both political candidates, and therefore whoever is deciding whether to promote your show or not will be offended one way or another.
That's so
Whoever
funny.
it is going to be offended.
There are some people who are, I'm sure, who are listening here as well. Some people who were who were apparently longtime supporters. Some people sent me messages saying, "I have been supportive of you, and I still support you throughout this whole time. But after what you have said about Donald Trump, I can no longer support you. So I hereby want to let you know that I have unsubscribed and also stopped my monthly support to you."
That's what you get.
And
That's what
I
you get
just-
for talking trash about the savior of humanity and the savior of the United States of America, the man who's going to fix everything that's wrong with society. There's this flood coming. People are about to be overwhelmed, and the rescuer, the savior, shows up to fix everything. And you have nothing but insults for him, all because he pandered to some Muslims in Michigan, made a few deals to get some promotion, and then what you're going to see is he's going to end up winning Michigan by a few votes, winning the election, all because he pandered to Muslims, and therefore he would only have the power to rescue and save humanity, the entire planet, possibly the universe. Because he did that, and you don't approve, because you're an idealist and not a pragmatist.
Well, I see that he's building the ark, but it's just I don't really believe it. Like when he says that a great flood is coming and it's going to rain and all that. This all sounds a little bit familiar. Sounds a little bit familiar and a little bit suspicious. I just don't buy it.
Just remember, that's what they said. That's what they said. Noah warned them. And now Noah Trump.
No.
Noah Trump trying to rescue you. And you're sitting there going, ha ha, I don't buy this. Ha ha ha, I don't buy this.
How about no? I don't buy your Trump.
Here we have hi. I think that's what it's supposed to be, unless that stands for something.
Yes.
Megatron says, "Did you
In
know
Germany,
that?
in German, that stands for shark. So just so you know.
Did you know that the Jews stole Jake Shields' umbrella? He has rain damage. Anyway, hope you two are having a good Halloween, Thanksgiving next, right?" Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice. That's a nice thing. I wish Jake Shields all the best and hope he finds his umbrella again before the situation is completely out of hand and lost.
Joshua says, Brother Wood, I downloaded your Fordham dissertation. On every page it says preview. Yeah, I'm not sure what you did there. I looked on Answering Islam and I don't see a way to your email. You go to individual authors there. And when you click on mine, it will have a way to contact me down at the bottom there of that page.
But
Let's see. Noel says, I have a solution to the Palestinian schools problem. Give control of all the schools to Christian missions organizations. They will teach the kids right. I know lots who would love to go there. It would be better.
that makes sense.
Would be better. Right now they have jihadis controlling the entire education system there.
It
It's
makes
not good.
sense.
Not good.
Well, it's the thing is leaving things in the hands of Christians in the Palestinian territories doesn't work very well in the long run because after a while they're like, "What is this? What is this? We do not agree with how you are running things. We have to come here and you have to obey us and do whatever we say and support our ambitions. So, or else we will punish you," which is why the Christian population of Gaza went from quite a bit to almost zero by now. And the Christian population in the Palestinian territories in general has been reduced to like 1% or so.
Not good. Not good. Not good.
Sad.
Megatron says, you see, AP's chest is hairier than Aisha, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. That's pretty based.
Is AP going to give us holiday treat to confess Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Be our brother and member of Christ's family. Heaven will rejoice.
Be my brother. That's a good question. I like the patriotic thing.
Hey, here you go. Steph S. says, I love you both regardless of voting choices or lack of. May God keep blessing you both and your families as well. Well, speak for yourself, Steph S. AP has decided to let the entire world drown in a flood. Instead of stepping aboard the Trump ark.
Steph S., I appreciate the sentiment here. I really appreciate the sentiment here. However, you are not playing by the rules. Because the rules are that if somebody disagrees with you, then you hate them and call them stupid and call them all kinds of names and say, from now on, I want nothing to do with you because you disagreed with me once. It's about one thing about my favorite politician. How dare you? You have stolen my childhood and my dreams. That's how you're supposed to act when somebody disagrees with you. So,
yeah, good point. And on a serious note, ladies and gentlemen, if anyone is completely new here and doesn't know what our perspectives are, AP's kind of these politicians that you guys have to choose from, they all have to be sellouts at the end of the day. And I'm not going with sellouts. That's him. Whereas me, I'm kind of, I think we have real problems, and the real problems that are destroying society, we focus on politics instead of the real problems. And I think that's why you're screwed. You're focusing on the wrong solutions instead of the correct solutions to the problems. And so in addition to the fact that I'm not even allowed to vote because I'm a convicted felon, I just don't care a whole lot because I care about my attention is directed towards what I regard as the real problems in society, and everything else I regard as like a symptom. And so I don't know. It's weird. It's like everyone. Same thing as attacking. If I learned one thing from G.I. Joe, it was what were those guys? The Dreadnoughts. They were training. I would pick up on this stuff. It didn't matter if I was 7 or 8 years old. But the Dreadnoughts, they were training the Cobra recruits. And these guys, they're training him how to destroy a building. And these guys are like shooting the building. And the guy steps up and he blasts the foundation of the building. And then the whole building comes tumbling down. He says, destroy the foundation and the rest come tumbling down. And what I see is there are people blasting away at the foundations of your society. And you're like, oh, look what's on the roof. Look at the smoke coming out of the chimney. Let's talk about that. Anyway.
So first you use a speech about focusing on politics instead of the real problem as an excuse simply because you can't vote anyway, but you just don't want to say that. And then you go into something about Star
Won't
Trek.
let me vote. I will teach them. I will say the whole system is stupid.
Star Trek taught me how to really think.
G.I. Joe, man. G.I. Joe. Make no apologies for watching G.I. Joe, He-Man, and Transformers when I was a kid. Those are all before your time.
Yeah, I generally don't. So I think that we live in a society, you know. No, I generally don't. I think that politics is an important aspect, and political candidates are also an important aspect. I'm not very fond of the political system that is currently present in America, though, and with the people that are being pushed popularly as candidates for presidency, I just think, wow.
Yeah. With all that said, ladies and gentlemen, we are giving you our personal perspectives here. I'm not telling you that you need to view politics as a distraction from deeper problems and so on. Some politicians will do a better job of steering the course of the country than other politicians. So if you're saying, hey, this guy's going to do better than that guy, or this person's going to do a better job, and you want to jump into that situation, I'm not your boss here. And that makes total sense. Just got nothing to do with me because I'm not allowed to vote. And so I get to sit back and say, screw the system, screw it all. It's all rigged.
Beast.
Joshua says, and thank our lucky stars we don't have to hear AP's horrific shofar playing. Hey.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the shofar.
We forgot the shofar. Thank you for reminding us, Joshua, and requesting the ceremonial blowing of the shofar. How are you getting worse? You were getting better every time, and now you got worse.
It's not working anymore because I played it today very, very long. So I actually practiced today.
He wore out his shofar. AP wore out his shofar. I think AP's accent and his way of speaking English is just like Liam Neeson. No, he sounds like Liam Neeson to me. He even has the same nose. Liam Neeson.
The funny thing is that some people have said before that when I speak, it sometimes sounds like Liam Neeson. I just don't understand what they mean.
Uh-huh.
I wish.
Seal of the Prophet says, did you catch Ed Hussein on trigonometry? Any thoughts on him? I did not catch that.
I did not. I saw that I saw that it's going on. I put it on my watch later list, but I haven't checked it out yet. Maybe worth looking.
Yep, we will check that out. I like trigonometry. Those guys are pretty cool. There's a rain coming, AP. You'll be flooded away. I tried to give you a raft. A great hang on. This is Trump. Okay. There's a rain coming, AP. You'll be flooded away. Tried to give you a raft. It was a good raft, a great raft, the best raft. I make the best rafts, the biggest raft. A vote for neither is a vote for both. It's what you get. And now, no raft for you.
Yeah, so David said we're just giving our opinions on this kind of stuff, and in the end, it's up to you, whatever you want. I would say I partially agree with that. I would personally say that I give my opinion on politics and the political candidates. If you are going to disagree with me and going to go for a certain candidate anyway, I will come. I will find you.
Yeah, and I will kill you. For anyone who doesn't know, that was Liam Neeson. D Wood, would you make Audible for people who can't read? I'd buy. Audible of what? All our stuff is Audible. You don't have to read. You don't have to read. You can listen to us. So I don't even know what that would mean. So we are going to learn about Mahmadim. Keep up the good work, guys. I don't think he brought up Mahmadim, but that is a D. favorite. Maybe this guy the one he brought up, the one I remember him bringing up is bad enough, but we'll see that in a minute. I hate UAP. Not really, but you said the rules. That's what you get.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
You looked it up,
skills
didn't you?
I have acquired over a very long career. I'm reading it right now. Skills that I
He looked it up. You got to memorize it, man, so you can spit it and look dead into the camera
know.
like
I have to
Mossab.
practice this. I have to practice this every day now.
Dude, when you
Skills
interview
that make
when you
life-
interview Mossab, you got to get him to say it. Got to get him to say it. What I do have are a very particular set of skills for the children to save the children.
Inshallah.
That would be cool. Was in Munich last week and visited Dachau. Guide mentioned Hitler's coziness with the Grand Mufti, but also Muslim SS unit. I wasn't aware of it. Makes sense. Yep, there was.
There was a Muslim assassin.
Go vote for Trump. You heard it here. You heard it here, folks. Megatron says, have you guys spoken to Benny Johnson? Great guy. Nope. I have not. Deliberative Disciple. What was the caveman's comment during the intermission of the Hebrew trumpet performance? So far, so good. Ed G says, AP shofar sounds like as an Aztec death whistle. That's a pretty funny comment.
Yeah, it sounds. It's a funny thing when I look it up. It sounds like a very good and very very nice. When others show how to do it, then I try to do the same thing. I'm like, oh yeah, so you mean like this? And it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it goes.
Joshua here says, FYI, AP Trump never needed your vote, as he never needed mine, so I followed your example in not voting Trump will win, allegedly, if only AP was the felon. He's making very good points here. People are making very, very good points. All right, guys, so we're going to check out this video on the channel Towards Eternity. What did I list this as? It's titled something like Christian Preacher. Christian Preacher. Okay, here we go.
Christian Preacher.
I'm surprised they didn't say Christian Minister. That's what they used to do. If it was any random person who ever believed in Christianity at any point, they would say minister, knowing that when people hear Christian minister, they think like a pastor or something like that. But if you say, hey, come on, Yusuf Estes wasn't a pastor or anything else like that, they'll go, oh, but a minister just means servant. He was a servant of the gospel. And so they can actually defend it. That's what they were doing with Ahmed Deedat for years. And then once people would misunderstand it, then I would get messages from Muslims. What do you do about Yusuf Estes? He was a Christian priest and a bishop, and he converted to Islam. No, he wasn't any of that at all. He was a gullible moron who believed a bunch of dawah nonsense and had no foundation in Christianity and had no idea of knowing that what they were telling him was complete nonsense. Anyway, this guy sounds very similar to the story.
That's a very messed up way to talk about
Yusuf
a dead
Estes.
person.
Yusuf Estes is alive, man.
He basically did.
Let's see this.
Welcome, Brother Khalil Meek. Thank you for accepting our invitation. As Towards Eternity, we are very happy to have you with us. I want to start by asking, who is Khalil Meek, and can you tell us briefly about your life?
My name's Khalil Meek. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I grew up in a Christian family, and I wanted to become a Baptist preacher. While studying comparative religion, I embraced Islam in 1989. So
89. That was the golden age of Dawah, ladies and gentlemen, the golden age, because that's when no one had any clue about it. And you had this window of time when Muslim preachers came in the 1980s and 1990s, and no one knew anything about Islam. And then because after 9/11, then suddenly some people started learning about Islam and figuring out how to respond to it. So the window for white converts was the golden window was 80s and 90s. Before that time, you had in the African American community, you had like Malcolm X and so on, Muhammad Ali and so on, preaching in places like Harlem and so on. And so you had a lot of converts in the 60s and 70s. But as far as guys like this, Dallas, Texas, and so on, that was the late 80s and 90s before 9/11. That's when you really had no one who knew anything about Islam. A Muslim preacher could walk up, say anything he wanted about Islam, and no one knew any better. Could walk in and say Muhammad is the greatest man who's ever lived. No one knew how to respond to that because no one had any way of knowing anything about him. You couldn't even get the sources back then unless you really, really went through some hoops to get those sources. But you were living in a completely different time right now where someone can quote something and you can look it up on sunnah.com and so on. It was not like that. It was much harder to refute stuff back then. But this guy caught it right at the right time for catching a very gullible Texan.
Then Israel flew the planes into the World Trade Center with the help of the lizard people. Everyone knows they did it.
Derail the da'wah. The da'wah. Say it right.
The da'wah.
Da'wah. I gotta work on that. I need to find the school that you went to and go there.
Do.
All right.
34 years ago, I became a proud Muslim. I'm also the founder of the Muslim Legal Fund of America, which is national charity in the U.S. that helps Muslims
wonder
with
where that money
immigration,
goes.
civil, criminal cases.
How was your life in regards to faith?
Criminal cases, huh? Interesting.
He became a proud
What were
Muslim.
you
Is he still a proud Muslim or what? What is he?
He's a very proud Muslim. What were you believing in?
Doing it.
I was a Baptist Christian. I believed that Jesus was my Savior and everything that goes along with that.
So you came from a religious family. What
We
were your
don't know
beliefs
what
like?
baptism
So,
is.
yeah.
We do not know what Baptist is. Please explain.
Please
Very,
explain
very
this.
easy. Explain easy. Were you Christian? Did you say Jesus? Why was Jesus? Why did you believe Jesus? Jesus ate food and Mary ate food too.
Yes, did you not know they ate food? How can you believe this?
Growing up in a Christian family, my mom, brother, and sister and I, we all would attend church on Sunday, and we'd go to vacation Bible school in the summer. And once we had a visiting preacher come to our church who actually gave a presentation about hell. And it was a video production that they played on a big screen for us to watch. And
Wait, video about hell? Oh, and they had reenacted people.
they had
This is interesting.
reenacted people.
If it was the Islamic version, it would show Allah roasting people's skins off and then giving them new skins so that they can roast them off again. That would be, that would be more
Dying or
terrifying.
whatever, and then angels coming and either
I wonder, do Muslims have those kind of videos that like? Because I
They
guess
have
I guess that was a thing. I've heard of this before. I've never seen them and stuff, but I've heard people say about the presentations on how bad hell is. And if you have, it's basically for people like this. You grow up in a Christian family, and so you kind of already believe. You believe in God. You believe in the Bible and so on. And then they need to sort of jolt you into taking a step to becoming a committed Christian. So they'd scare you with a presentation about how bad hell is. I don't know if they do that. I don't know if they do that in Islam. It would make sense talking about like roasting your skin off.
Yeah,
and replacing it.
they do. And they could do better things to do that. Like they could, I don't know, waterboard you or electrocute you, torture you, do things like that to tell you about it. But of course, this is also an option. They do similar things in Islam. In Islamic societies, they do often, although not in the best visual way, because they don't happen to be very artistically
That's true.
good. They tend to, in the narrative and in words and in very dramatic ways, make references to what will happen to you in hell. Very much build on what is already in the Quran. The Quran makes a whole messed up description of what will happen to you as a Muslim, as a disbeliever or as a sinner in hell, where it's basically like the point of view as an animal that is being cooked alive or something like that. However, even worse, of course. But they will expand very much on that. I've heard so many editions, so many fantasies about what will happen to me in hell if I go to hell, which I thought were all come from the Quran. And when I read the Quran, I realized that the Quran is really, really messed up. But I've been told much, much worse because people just, for some reason, love to do this. They love to do this.
If you do not embrace Islam by reciting the 99 names, you will go to hell, and this will be shoved up. The 99 names will be shoved up your butt.
Yeah, I have just to memorize the 99 names. I have this. I got this decor thing, which is don't misunderstand. People might think it's something else, but it has the 99 names of Allah on it.
What goes in your butt in hell?
Yeah.
Taking them to heaven or hell, and then showing us what happened in hell. So I was like 6, 7, second, third grade at this time. And that's what scared me a lot. So I became Christian that night and then went to all of my neighborhood and invited all of the kids and families to come the next day to see it again, right? To do that. So it was very emotional. And then as I grew up, it just became a Sunday thing. And then when I went to college, I did not practice my faith in college. My birth mother died in a car accident when I was 1.5 years old. But because of her death, there was an insurance settlement that my father got, and the kids, myself, received a insurance payment that set in an annuity, growing until I reached the age of 18. And then that money was given to me all at once.
Okay, so he was scared. He was scared of hell when he was 6 or 7. Doesn't quite remember. Became a Christian. Then it became less and less a part of his life. But his mom died when he was young, and there was an insurance settlement to be paid once he was 18, and so got a big check at 18. All right, so everyone knows we are up to date on, I guess, when this guy is about to encounter Islam.
Must be nice.
So when I was 18, I had money, I had freedom, but I partied a lot in college. I enjoyed my time there. But by the time my senior year came, the year I was going to graduate, I started feeling like all of what I was doing was way out of line and that I had been brought up better. So I decided that it was kind of an epiphany that I need to get back to my religious heritage.
I have to say, I like this guy's calm, soothing voice here. And,
Yeah, but something is wrong with the microphone. It's like I can hear him. I can hear too much sound noise there in his mouth.
yeah, like
or
the
his chest or something.
snapping of his lips and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but and that might be because they have to turn it way up because he has like a whisper type voice, a very soothing whisper type voice, like a psychologist or something like that. But yeah, they might have had to crank it up because he's whispering the entire time.
It
That
sounds
means-
like Islamic, like Dawa, revert ASMR. That's what it sounds like.
So at the same time, I
Same
decided.
time, I decided I wanted to be a Baptist preacher. So I finished my degree and planned accordingly.
So then, how did your journey towards Islam begin? Can you take us to those days?
This is what we're interested in.
Well, my journey to Islam began my senior year in college when I
year.
decided I wanted to become a Baptist preacher. I decided not to quit college and go to seminary, but to finish my degree and then go to seminary. So I had 1 year to finish. And because of my enthusiasm, I just started dragging all of my friends, colleagues, everybody I met into a religious conversation so that I could think about how I could practice saving people, right? The whole mission would be to convert them to Christianity.
Oh, so you're the savior here. Okay. It's this guy trying to be Donald Trump rescuing humanity. Hey, that would have been funny. I was watching Donald Trump in a video. This is 1989, and I saw him, and I realized this guy's going to save the world in the future. And hey, why can't I save everyone now?
Yeah, why would he have to have the honor? Why not me? I want to be the one who saves everyone.
Oh yeah, Bo Rudder, good comment. Bo, let me go through these. Let me go through a couple super chats. Because I'm going to get down to Bo Rudder's comment right here. Let's see. If only AP was the villain.
What?
Let's see.
What did it say? If only AP what?
Audible books for the app. Liam is from near me.
Oh. Yes.
Audible books for the app.
Wait a
Liam
minute,
is
do you-
near me.
Do you not
Maybe-
know what Audible is, David?
Yeah, it's where you like read a book, right? So I'm saying,
Yeah,
why would
yeah.
we need to do Audible when all we do is talk? But I guess
Okay.
she means like other books or something like that. Like you read them.
I don't know. That'll be funny.
We'll see. AP, I can blow shofar decently because I played trombone. The short horn is more difficult than the long shofar, and a trumpet mouthpiece may help. You know, it's interesting when you had that short shofar. I was like, oh, maybe the problem is maybe the short one's actually more difficult. And then I'll get the like 3-foot shofar and stuff like that. But then it'll be like, it'll look like I'm trying to show off or something like this, or try to outdo him by getting a way more expensive shofar and stuff. But this may actually be correct. My theory may have been correct.
I'm usually I happen to be very cheap and always go for the cheapest thing I can find. So when I was looking for the shofar, I saw that there are different sizes of it, and I thought, I don't have to. I'm not a professional shofar player, so I don't have to get the biggest thing that I see. I'll just get a regular small one. That's what I got. There are also these big ones, these ginormous ones.
Yeah, the Larry David one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to see. All right, where's that?
Inshallah.
Let's see. We all agree Dawood deserves to have his right to vote revived, right? AP, you should proxy vote for David. Yeah, since you're not voting, you could go vote for whoever I decide. And then we could do things that way.
That makes sense. Okay, I can do that. I still have time to vote this week.
Good.
I'll
let you know on the day. You can message me.
So I will vote for Kamala Harris in your place. I think that's what you are.
Good. I love her cackling. It's my favorite thing in the universe. That's some ASMR sound.
Nice.
Kamala cackling. Pair character. Oh, that's a super sticker. Thanks for the super sticker. Blink quickly 5 times if you need IDF to rescue you from gymnasium. Oh, it's the guy in this. The guy in the video. He's in a gymnasium. You need the IDF to come in here and rescue him. That's pretty funny. Liam Neeson said he loved the sound of the Islamic call to prayer and that Islam might be the answer. Yeah, I do remember him saying he loves the sound of the Islamic call to prayer. Yeah, the world is full of gullible people. Did you see Joe Biden biting babies? Come on, that's a myth. It sounds like Muhammad
eating the
Inshallah.
babies.
He's eating they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Now they're even eating the babies, the Democrats, they're eating the babies. It sounds like Muhammad Inshallah and J.D. Vance was saying we should not have the call to prayer in the USA. Sounds based, AP. I agree. No call to prayer. Love you guys. Nope. AP, by refusing to vote, is embracing the Islamic call to prayer. And he wants it over the entire country.
That's very funny because the outrage was specifically about Donald Trump hosting those very people who are pushing for the call to prayer.
Yeah,
in Minnesota and in different places, same community.
Yeah, Kenny says when I first watched this video, I was like, he's talking about the video we're watching now. He says when I first watched this video, I was like, oh my goodness, all these arguments convinced you? Yes, that's what we're about to see. We're about to see the powerful Dawah arguments he was given. One thing AP says better than D would Dawah. Yeah. He does. There are certain sounds that are very hard if you are not used to them. AP is coming to Christ, inshallah. We've got that.
Inshallah.
Masab. Okay, here, Bo Rudder. This is a comment I wanted to get to. An aspiring Baptist minister sounds like another Yusuf Estes. And who's that other one? Joshua Evans, a.k.a. Yusha Evans. If you go through when he was becoming a popular Dawah guy, they would put, he was a Christian youth minister, knowing that people would interpret that as like he was some sort of youth pastor or something like that. Nope, had no sort of official role or anything. He just went to Sunday school. Because he went to Sunday school, he said, okay, well, you're technically a Christian and a servant, and therefore you're and it's in a youth group, and therefore you're a Christian youth minister. And so they always want to prop these guys up. So here, what do you actually have? He's an aspiring Baptist minister. He thought about going to seminary, was thinking that he might want to go to seminary and become a Baptist minister, preacher, something like that, but then encountered the powerful forces of Dawah. But yes, very similar. And it seemed this whole class of late 80s, early 90s converts from Texas and so on are all have a very similar theme. And finally here, V said, had a Muslim chaplain in class, and he said that Palestinians had no choice but to retaliate with violence against oppression. Also said Muslims love Mary more than Christians because they veil like her. Yeah, you've got a really great, powerful chaplain.
Powerful argument right there. Very, very powerful argument. Very powerful argument.
It's good stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
You can maybe tell them that lots of people around the Muslim world live much worse lives than the Palestinians do, and the Palestinians live much better lives than lots of people in the Muslim world, and even better than certain European nations, better living standards. So, I guess everyone who is kind of in their shoes or in their standards is forced to go out there and to destroy and to kill and to rape and burn and all of that. So, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Powerful. And Ash says, bro converted to a leprechaun. I'm not going to criticize people for how they trim their beard and so on, but I have to say, if this dude had a green hat on and a green jacket, if there was ever a situation where he needed to rock the part of a leprechaun, he could definitely pull it off. I'll just say that, and that is no disrespect at all.
I can't unsee it.
He would just crush the role of a leprechaun. Absolutely. All right, here we go.
So how would I relate to other faiths and be able to convince them of Christianity? So as an entertainment, that's what I did my senior year, was just ask people, what do you believe and why? And I would listen.
Those are good
Then
questions.
I
I
made
asked those
friends with a Muslim. I had made friends with him earlier, but I never talked about religion. So now I ask him, what do you believe? And he said, I'm Muslim. And back in the 80s when I was in college, I didn't know what that even meant, really. Just, what is that?
Hey.
Is it a cult? Is it a...
Ha, dude, I was just pointing this out. No one knew anything. Like, not even the bare minimum that someone might know now. People were completely, utterly, totally clueless back then when Dawah was kicking off there. So, and he's acknowledging he had no idea what Islam even is. Is that some sort of cult? Is it a religion? That's his level of knowledge when he encounters Dawah.
It's just what I'm thinking. He said, I'm Muslim, and he started telling me what he believes. And after a couple of minutes, I'm still listening, but I'm thinking in my head, you sound like a confused Christian. I don't know what this Islam or Muslim is, but you're very close.
It's interesting. So you sound like a confused Christian. So you would believe in God, believe in the prophets, believe in the virgin birth. These are all things he would have heard in a first conversation. You believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, that Jesus performed miracles, that Jesus is the Messiah, that Jesus is going to return one day. Oh, but you're really off on a couple things. So yeah, you sound like a confused Christian. And that's because Muhammad stole a bunch of stuff from Christians.
It is a very, very funny thing to say, because there is something about Islam that is just, that makes it a very, very clear copy and an appropriation of both Christianity and Judaism. In whatever order you want to take it, Muhammad started stealing first one and then the other, and adopting certain aspects very, 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 very much without understanding a single thing. There is one funny thing to think about, actually. I thought about this today. Islam has this whole idea. Muslims have this whole idea that Muslims, that different prophets were sent to different people, and the Israelites, they received their own prophets, and those prophets specifically came for the Israelites, and the Muslims have their own prophets, and so on. But you know what's funny? When you look at all of the prophets, or all of the people mentioned as prophets in the Quran, they are almost all past the time of Ishmael and Isaac. Almost all of them are descendants of Isaac. Almost all of them are Israelites. The Quran has no collection, no lineage of separate prophets. It completely, or almost completely, relies on the Israelite prophets. How and why is that the case? If Allah had a message for the Israelites, and the Ishmaelites went their own way, and they had their own thing going on, and the Israelite prophets were only for the Israelites. Why are almost all of the Quranic prophets post Isaac all Israelite prophets? It's very, very weird. It doesn't make much sense. It looks like it's just an adoption of the biblical religion, and then a corruption of it by saying, "Oh, okay, yeah, we have to go our own way. Just let's just make it work somehow through Muhammad."
Yeah, guys, you should make a video about that, AP, because I was thinking, How the Jewish and Christian perspectives would be different on the issue of the prophets, that God focuses on one nation and then brings the Messiah out of that one nation. And then that one nation and the Messiah, from a Christian perspective, are to be a light to the rest of the world. Whereas in Islam, so if you guys want to understand the problem that AP was just bringing up, in Islam, Allah sent prophets into every part of the world, right? He sent all these prophets into the world, every single nation. The Arabs were last. So by the time you get to Muhammad, every other nation already had their prophets. And so if the Quran is Allah's eternal speech, and there wasn't this God just focusing on one nation and then bringing everything out, but God separately sent people into to everywhere else in the world, why is everything that Muhammad is saying exactly what people would have been familiar with in 7th century Arabia? Because you have a bunch of Jews there talking about their prophets. Why is everything he's saying just the stuff that he would have heard from the people around him, versus giving all these insights into what these other prophets in, let's say, Japan and China and so on, and to the Eskimos, what all these other prophets in all these different places are saying, so that it could later be confirmed when you actually go there. Instead, he says all these places had their prophets, doesn't say who they were. They're just preaching Islam. And of course, by the time you go and encounter all these other groups, they have no clue what you're talking about. But that's not a problem for Islam, right? So the question is, why is Muhammad only familiar with stuff that any 7th century Arabian caravan trader would have been familiar with, and not the other stuff?
Brother makes a good point.
Almost got it down. You're that close, So I think
like a nice guy,
I'll
though.
go ahead and save somebody before I go to seminary, right? I tried to convert my Muslim friend to become a Christian, and he would
didn't?
just
You're a
enjoy
weakling.
talking religion. No, he couldn't get tired of it, but he never debated. He never compared. I'm trying to tell him about Jesus and why this, and he's just thinking how good I am and how wonderful it is to have this conversation. But when we left, the next time I'd see him, he would give me a brochure, a pamphlet, something that was kind of a comparative religious dialogue on that topic that we had discussed. And I ended up receiving numerous pamphlets. One of the pamphlets that I received was, "Is the Bible God's Word?" And it was Ahmadidat pointing out.
You ever run into these pamphlets? Because I got these in prison. People would give these pamphlets out in prison, and I would actually look them up. And what my reaction was, very different. I thought about how massively stupid and deceptive they were when I encountered them. So it's very interesting that he's really impressed with these things. He's really impressed with them.
My gosh, this is amazing! Wow, this makes so much sense.
You know what? It's some points in life, or over these last years, especially ever since we have been doing this kind of stuff, I feel like every now and then, maybe I should step back and take a break for a little bit, because I get really fed up and just think, why are people so freaking stupid?
Yeah,
And I don't want to think that way.
Yeah, there is that part of me that's like, okay, dude, if you fell for this and you're that stupid, you get what you deserve, man. You get what you deserve. You deserve
Exactly.
Islam. In other words, dawah was made for people like you, where they're going to give you something by Ahmed Deedat, one of the greatest con artists of all time, who you could literally look up anything he says and find out it's complete nonsense. I mean, anything. Pick something. Listen to him for 30 seconds and go look it up, and you find out what a complete compulsive liar this guy is. But this guy's pointing out this is before he knew anything about Islam, and no one knew anything about Islam back then. They just didn't know. So he's arguing, and this guy's bringing him pamphlets from Ahmed Deedat. And here's the insane part, because this video was titled something like Christian preacher converts to Islam, something, and then in the thumbnail or whatever, it said he found Muhammad in the Bible. Now, why do I find this interesting? Because right here he's saying, you can see what's coming. You could see what's coming. It's what comes every time. He's sitting here saying, I was given this something by a pamphlet by Ahmed Deedat on whether the Bible is the word of God. And so, no, I'm going to find out that the Bible is corrupt and can't be trusted. And let me guess, the next argument's going to be, why should you believe in Muhammad? Because he's in the Bible. And anyone with any concept of consistency should be able to spot that. Wait a minute, you just gave me a pamphlet on why I can't trust the Bible and can't trust it. It's corrupt and so on. Okay, interesting stuff here. What's your next pamphlet? Oh, I should believe in Muhammad because he's in the Bible? And they don't get the book you tried to convince me is completely corrupt and can't be trusted? That's what so if I'm quoting something to you about the Bible, I can't quote that because the Bible's been corrupted. But you can quote the Bible to me, and that's supposed to be the evidence for your prophet.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, here this guy is after 34 years or something like that. He still will not see this problem at all. Like, you could bring this up to him and his brain would not process that there is an issue here. Fun stuff.
The historicity of the Bible, and him just asking the question, is this book God's word? And he makes his analysis in the book. The problem with that is I believed the Bible was true 100%.
Like
I
Allah
grew
and
up
Muhammad.
reading it, studying it, participating in church. But I'd never studied the historicity of the Bible.
I'll give you the Islamic historicity of the Bible. Your God, Allah, revealed the Torah and the gospel. And he says that no one can change his words. He has the power to protect his word. He sent revelations to different groups, including Jews and Christians and Muslims. And all these groups have to judge by the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God that they have that was revealed to their groups. And you're attacking it. Why? Because you did not know this in 89. Ahmed Deedat wouldn't have told you this. In fact, I don't think Ahmed Deedat on the issue of what the Bible is and so on and what the Quran, I don't think he had any clue what he was talking about. Because if you listen to Ahmed Deedat, he claims that the Torah and the Gospel, the Torah and the Injil, were actually only referred to the speech of Moses and Jesus, respectively, and that it was never a written text. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the Quran says it's a written text, right? The Quran says it. They find written down with them in Surah 7, verse 157. And all these passages in the Quran are about the books that Jews and Christians have. We're the people of the book. We have revelations from God that we are told that we have to judge by. We don't have the immaterial speech of Moses and Jesus to judge by. It specifically says it's written text. The point is, Deedat wasn't right about even what Islam teaches about the Torah and the gospel. He had no clue. And then he's the one who tells this guy what to believe about the Bible. And this guy believes it.
You have to be, in a way, ignorant or, deny the truth in your own head or twist it in a weird way in order to hold on to the Islamic perspective and the Islamic narrative on the Bible. Because I genuinely think that if you actually understand the historical development, the historical context of the Bible, of the Injil and the Torah, as the Quran calls it, then you can't. It's not consistent with the Islamic narrative. It doesn't make sense. The Islamic narrative itself is internally inconsistent. You can't hold on to. You can't hold on to Islam if you have a proper understanding of the historical development of the Bible and what Islam then teaches about it.
That is correct. And we've said that many times before, guys. There is no coherent position on the Bible from an Islamic perspective. Because the Quran affirms that Allah revealed the Torah and the gospel and other works to other prophets and so on, but Allah revealed the Torah and the gospel. Allah preserves his words, he preserves his speech, and he has revealed different books to different groups so that they have access to books in their own languages so they can understand it, not require someone else who speaks a different language for them and so on. So that's what the Quran says, but the Quran contradicts the Torah and the gospel on basic doctrines and so on. And so it's not what Allah says. And so you have to, as a Muslim, just say, okay, well, it must have been corrupted then, but that's not what he says. And so if you say, oh, well, Allah affirms these books, therefore I have to believe those too, great. Now you have a bunch of contradictions because they contradict Islam. And so you say, okay, well, I'll have to say they're corrupted then. Okay, well, then you're contradicting Allah. So that's the point. There's no coherent, you can't have a coherent position. That's why you have to be ignorant, as AP pointed out. You have to be. Just imagine, guys, because I keep talking about how lucky you are today. Imagine if this guy had known what lots of Christians know today, what lots of atheists know today, what lots of Jews know today, namely what the Quran says about the earlier scriptures. Then when this guy comes up, hey, check out this pamphlet by Ahmed Deedat on your Bible. And he should have said, wait a second, he's criticizing the historicity of the Bible? Ooh, I guess I can't believe in your prophet then, because your prophet affirmed the historicity of my Bible.
This is the
what it
problem
should
with doing what this guy went out doing back in the day. You shouldn't go out and try to preach to others before without having a proper understanding of what you yourself believe in and what others believe about your book.
Yeah. Matter of fact, that's a very, very good point. It's built into Islam to attack other people's views.
Yeah.
It's built into it. It's built into Islam. That's why this guy, he's trying to talk to a Muslim. He knows nothing about Islam. He doesn't know where to criticize Islam. He has no idea. But this guy's bringing him Ahmed Deedat pamphlets. Ahmed Deedat built his entire career on attacking Christianity. And so this guy's completely unarmed. He's completely unarmed. He has nothing. He has nothing to go with. And he's being bombarded by Ahmed Deedat pamphlets and has no clue how to respond and no idea how to look any of this up. And then shocker, he's very impressed by this stuff.
We get this book, right? It has names on every chapter. So I'm just assuming these guys wrote it and they put it all together in a book, right? So it's just people in the past inspired by God to write what they were inspired. But I said, that's not going to cut it to prove anything. So I need to learn the historicity of the Bible to prove its authority, a skeptic or anyone. And I said, I'm going to dedicate myself to that. So instead of now entertaining myself with what do you believe and why, I dove into the historicity of the Bible so I could explain it to somebody else. In that process, I started with 100% conviction. Then I started to learn how we have the Bible. When you start to look at how do we know this is what Moses said, Jesus said, the prophet said, then you look at the copies or the historical documents. Well, to my surprise, the New Testament, there are no original manuscripts in Aramaic.
To his surprise, no original manuscripts in Aramaic. So the New Testament was originally written in Aramaic, according to his in-depth studies, his in-depth research. The New Testament was originally written in Aramaic, but we don't have it. We don't have the Aramaic originals. This is what his deep research revealed to him, and then he realized, well, I can't trust this. We don't have the Aramaic originals. Now, to be clear, there was said to have been an Aramaic or Hebrew original of the Gospel of Matthew and so on. But AP, I'm just trying to pick a book right now. Okay, Masab Hassan Yusuf's book, Son of Hamas.
Yeah.
Was that originally written in English or Arabic?
English.
English. That's interesting because Masab Hassan Yusuf is a native Arabic speaker. That's weird. Why would his book have been written in English? I'm guessing there's an Arabic translation now, but keep in mind, that would be a translation of a book that's written in English. Why would that be written in English, everyone?
Oh, golly, I am flabbergasted by this question.
Oh, you got it right there.
Until now, I was looking at this and thinking this is the original text. But wait a minute, he was not an English speaker, he was an Arabic speaker. A native Arabic speaker. So where is the original Arabic?
Yeah, why wouldn't he have put that book together in Arabic? That's his language. Is it because English is kind of the standard language out there for if you want international book release. It's just a standard language. AP, what would have been the English of the first century AD? What would have been the sort of global language as far as if you go to different places, they're going to know a particular language? Any idea on what that might be?
Yeah, especially in that part of the world, it would have been Greek.
Yeah, because guys, Alexander the Great spread the Greek language all the way from Europe to India, across the Middle East. You could go anywhere. There would still be people who spoke their original languages and so on, but everywhere you went, there were Greek speakers there. Everywhere you went, it became the international language. So, if you're trying to put out the teachings of Jesus into a book form, and you believe that this is for the entire world, that he has commanded you to go into all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, making disciples of all nations, are you going to put that into a language that people from all these different languages know, or are you going to put it into Aramaic, which very few nations knew? Which would you do there? Because this guy is very confused by this. Why would a book not have been in Aramaic? By the way, guys, serious note here. Did this guy actually study the history of the Bible from a Christian perspective, from a secular perspective, or from an Islamic Dawah perspective? The moment you start saying, well, what about the original in Aramaic? That is an Islamic claim.
That is the thing. That is what should be shocking, but is not anymore, because you have these guys come here and be religious and explain to you how they were amazed and how they converted to Islam and all that. So you expect these people to actually speak the truth, tell you the truth of what they found, what they encountered, how the switch happened, and so on. And then they come with these stories of how and then I looked into the Bible, and lo and behold, I figured out that strangely enough, the Bible was not directly word by word recited through an angel into the mouths of Jesus and pronounced by him in form of poetry in Aramaic to scribes that were around him and wrote it all down. I was very surprised to find this out when I studied the historical aspect of it. Okay, all of that was completely incoherent garbage. All of that is a completely Islamic expectation of what you should find when you study the historicity of a scripture. And it certainly shows us that you didn't actually study. So why are you telling us this? You are clearly lying. And it's a similar thing with this guy here.
Yeah.
He's lying.
Yeah. He read some incoherent Dawah nonsense, which does not give you the correct Quran perspective, the perspective of the Quran on the Jewish and Christian scriptures, and gives you a completely distorted secular view of the Torah and the gospel. In other words, they're not giving you a Christian perspective, a Jewish perspective, a Muslim perspective even, or an atheist, agnostic, whatever perspective, a scholarly perspective. They're not giving you any of that. They're giving he's checking out the ramblings of Ahmed Deedat. That's what he's doing. And then, of course, you have to, for some reason, they always have to pass it off as if they did all this great research. But you can tell by what they say, they were not doing any research. You would not be asking about the Aramaic originals of the New Testament if you had the slightest clue what you were talking about, ladies and gentlemen. That's an Islamic thing.
I want to point out one thing, which is that Greek was so influential at the time that it was even influential within the Jewish community. It is very well known in Jewish history that Greek was extremely influential at that point. The Jewish society in Israel, in Judea, spoke commonly Aramaic, and they were very much aware of Greek and spoke Greek. They were communicating in Greek. There were Hellenistic Jews who were spread across different parts of the empire, who were speaking Greek and adopting Greek thinking into their Jewish beliefs. The Pharisees had a lot of commentary on Greek. They also it was Jews themselves who we talk about the Septuagint, for example, as a basis for much of the biblical texts that we have. The Septuagint was a Greek translation that was translated by Jews. The Hebrew was translated into Greek. So the Greek was of huge relevance. It was incredibly influential among non-Greek people, including the Jews in the heartland of Judaism. So it's not a big surprise that that people there, including Jesus and his followers, would communicate in Greek, and that his followers would write down things in Greek, and that the first compilation of the works and the epistles by Paul would all come into existence in Greek first. Why would you expect something Aramaic there? And why would you look for an original manuscript?
Yeah, and I have to say, so 3 additional quick points. One I already alluded to, but the Quran talks about Christians still having the gospel and reading the gospel. Were Christians, when the Quran orders Christians to judge by the gospel, is it talking about an Aramaic original that they didn't have? So that would be one problem. The Quran assumes, it takes for granted that Christians still have the gospel, and that's what we're commanded to judge by. So guess what? We don't have any Aramaic original of the gospel. So what's the Quran commanding us to judge by? That's one issue. 2, the Arabic word, according to the Quran, for our book that we have is the Injil. Injil. Where's that word come from? Guys, you need to learn this stuff. The Arabic word Injil is the Arabic transliteration. That's where you take a word from one language and just try to represent it in the letters of the new language, and it doesn't always cross over well because they don't have some of the same sounds and so on. But the Arabic word Injil is a transliteration of the Greek word euangelion, which means good news. So Injil is not a transliteration of some original Hebrew or Aramaic word. It's a transliteration of a Greek word. So why, according to the Quran, is the book of the Christians in Greek? Like, how does that's what I mean. He said, it's not in Aramaic. It's in Greek. That makes no sense. Okay, then why does it make sense to Allah that our book is in Greek? So that's the second problem. Let's see. What did I bring up? What the Quran's? Oh, and the other issue is, ladies and gentlemen, what language does Jesus speak in the Quran? Hebrew? Aramaic? He speaks perfect classical Arabic in the Quran, right? So Jesus, like all the other prophets in the Quran, speaks perfect classical Arabic. In fact, it's weird because they all sound exactly like Muhammad. They all sound exactly the same. They sound like the same person in the Quran. So guys, here's the issue here, ladies and gentlemen. Muslims, for some reason, when you talk about the words of Jesus being put into Greek, they have a big problem with it. That can't be the word of God. They have no problem with Jesus only speaking perfect Arabic in the Quran. When the interesting thing is, very common in first century Israel to speak Greek. You had Roman soldiers at the time, and they were going to be shouting at you in Greek, and you better know how to listen to them, or you're going to have some serious problems here. So everyone, there would always be people around who could speak Greek.
The Romans were not messing around.
They were not playing around. So guys, those are some of the initial problems this guy has no clue about, and he is encountering the pamphlets of Ahmed Deedat. He has no clue what the Quran says, no clue what the Bible says, no clue about anything except for the hell video that he saw when he was 6 or 7 years old. And he's doing all this research, which conveniently sounds exactly like the research you'd get from an Ahmed Deedat pamphlet.
Powerful.
Which is the language of Palestine during the time of Jesus. There
the language
are no
of Palestine
documents in Hebrew, which he was a Jew, and they preserved their messages prior to and everything in Hebrew. So we have nothing in Hebrew, nothing in Aramaic, The only
Wait,
documents we have.
wait. Play it again. What did you just say?
He's talking about the New Testament. And he's saying we don't have anything in Hebrew or Aramaic. Let's go and watch the entire section again.
Surprise, the New Testament, there are no original manuscripts in Aramaic, which is the language of Palestine during the time of Jesus. There are no documents in Hebrew, which he was a Jew, and they preserved their messages prior to and everything in Hebrew. So we have nothing in Hebrew, nothing in Aramaic. The only documents we have are in Greek and later in Latin. And we have 10,000 copies of each one of those books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yet no two copies are identical. That is some...
Very, very briefly, we talked about the absurdity of expecting something in Aramaic here, but expecting something in Hebrew from the apostles around Jesus is even more absurd here.
Again, even from an Islamic perspective, where the book, the Injil, is a Greek book, this is really, really wild stuff. Sounds exactly like a Dawa pamphlet, and none of the manuscripts are not the same, right? Because you have different ways of spelling. The vast majority of textual variants are things like spelling differences, because you can, just like in you can spell words in, like you can spell the word John, the Greek word for John, with one N or two N's. And so some manuscripts, they'll spell it with one N, some they'll spell it with two N's. And guess what? Every one of those is counted as a textual variant. Every place the word John appears is counted as a textual variant. Because you do have variants among manuscripts and so on. The vast majority of textual variants are things like that. And this is important to note, because you'll have, and I can guarantee this is exactly what happened to him. Hey, did you know there are many, many thousands of textual variants in the Bible manuscripts? What? The Bible hasn't been perfectly preserved. It's been corrupted. Guess what, guys? You have the same thing in Quran manuscripts. But he was probably told perfect preservation right down to the letter, and that there are no textual variants in the Quran. Guys, anytime you copy a huge book by hand, you are going to have some textual variants in there. You're going to have some spelling difference. You're going to have something. What does this guy actually need for Islam to be true? What would Ahmadiyya need? You need massive corruption of basic doctrines, that Jesus isn't Son of God, that he didn't die on the cross, that he didn't rise from the dead. Those are the kinds of things you need. And that's what you never, ever, ever find in your examination of the historicity of the Bible. You never find the corruption of basic doctrine. You find you have spelling differences and things like that. That's what you get. And they know their listeners, just like they know when you say, hey, I was a Christian preacher. They assume that you're like some evangelist or something like that. Not that whatever this guy says, he says he was preaching when he was like 6 or 7 and stuff like that. Anyway, they know that when you see Christian preacher, you're thinking this guy's like Billy Graham. He's going around and he converted to Islam. They know you. That's how you're interpreting things. Just like they know when you say, oh, there are all these textual variants in the Bible, they know their Muslim listeners are hearing, oh, this massive corruption. And see, that's what Islam teaches. One, that's not what Islam teaches. Two, if you actually look at the kind of textual variants you have, none of that helps Islam. Zero. Nothing. There's nothing. There is not a textual variant in any manuscript that gets you 1 inch closer to Islam. Ever. Period. So why do they use this? They use this because they know that people are ignorant and people fall for this. And here's Exhibit A.
That's pretty racist thing to say. However, when we talk about the people that were at the very, very, very beginning in charge of spreading Christianity, and that primarily, if we talk about Paul, for example, Paul went to places where he preached the gospel to people who primarily didn't speak Hebrew. The people who were around him, who were around Jesus, did not primarily speak Hebrew. Hebrew was at that point not even a common language among regular Jews. It fell out of regular use, was replaced by Aramaic. Hebrew was more the scriptural language, which was the language of worship, left to the synagogue, to temple, and so on. When Paul goes around into the Greek world, especially going around the Hellenistic world, world. Why would it make sense for him to carry around a bunch of Hebrew stuff with him, or to or to preach to people in Hebrew, or to write to people in Hebrew? No, it's primarily going in Greek. There's nothing weird about this. There's nothing strange about this. And if you just understand a little bit of the history, a little bit of the historical context of what was going on at that time in the world, you wouldn't have these ridiculous expectations. Only somebody who is ignorant of history
Yep.
and who is of the caliber of Ahmed Diznats would have such an expectation and would then present this as legitimate criticism of Christianity. It's stupid.
Yeah, everyone who's watching, because if you actually go, even from the perspective of people like Bart Ehrman, he says that the New Testament is the best preserved work of the ancient world, right? If you go in there and you start having if there's a textual variant, that means God isn't protecting it or something like that, or you can't trust it. Okay, then if that's your standard, if that's your criterion, be consistent. There are textual variants in the manuscripts of the Quran. So can you trust that? Well, this guy never had any clue about that. But yeah, it's clear, guys, he's not going to anything remotely resembling a scholarly source or a scholarly examination of the preservation of the New Testament, because the takeaway when you look at the history of the preservation of the New Testament is, wow, this has been really, really well preserved. And their textual variants, you can spot them, right? Because if someone in the Middle East is making a copy and he messes up when he's making his copy, guess what? That doesn't affect the copies in Rome. That doesn't affect the copies in Egypt. And when you line up the manuscripts, you can see where and when these things, where and when you ended up with these variants. That's what textual criticism is. They line up the manuscripts and they say, okay, we can spot where this reading emerged and so on. Again, you never get to anything that gets you 1 inch closer to Islam, ever. You never get away. You never find a Jesus who isn't the divine Son of God who died on the cross for sins and rose from the dead. You never find an Islamic Jesus who's just a prophet. You just don't find one. Why do they bring it up? Because they know their listeners have no clue what they're talking about. And that's Dawah.
Ain't no such thing.
And he fell for it.
Such thing.
You can believe and explain, but it wasn't a very strong proof, in my opinion. Some can. However, you learn when you keep studying that there were other books just as old, just as, apparently authentic that were not included in the Bible.
What?
In fact, there's the Catholic Bible and the Protestant Bible, which are different. In other words, 2,000 years of...
Did you catch that? AP, you know how stupid that is. The problem is not one. If you look at Towards Eternity, this Muslim channel, not one of their readers would understand how stupid what he just said is.
Gosh, just open a table of Catholic canon and Protestant canon and look at it.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Catholics and Protestants have the same Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, and so on. They have the same books of the New Testament. They have the same, you go to Old Testament, they have the same Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They have the same Old Testament. The difference is in what are called the intertestamental books. So the ones between the testaments. What does that have to do with what he just said?
Nothing.
But there's these other ones. He was making it sound like there were these alternative gospels that weren't included. I always thought he was about to go, and it's the gospel of Barnabas. The gospel of Barnabas.
That too.
Yeah,
I was expecting.
He probably believes that, and he just didn't say it.
God.
Yeah. So guys, Catholics, Protestants have a difference of opinion on whether those intertestamental books should be included in the canon of Scripture. And this guy sees that as a problem. Okay, from an Islamic perspective, what books should be included? What books should be on that list of inspired books? Guys, the reason I'm bringing that up is because you have the Torah listed as revealed by Allah. You have the gospel as as revealed by Allah, and you have the Psalms as revealed by Allah. When we ask Muslims, hey, where's Muhammad in the Bible? They start going Song of Solomon, Isaiah, and all these things. Like, hey, wait a minute. So all those are inspired too? And you'll have other Muslims saying the Song of Solomon can't be inspired because it's so sexual and so on. It's like, wait a minute. So there's differences of opinion among Muslims about whether Song of Solomon is the inspired speech of Allah. So Muslims would have disagreements about what books they are including in their canon. If they were to, in other words, if Muslims were to make a list of every book that has been revealed by Allah, you would actually have differences of opinion there. And what's that mean? That none of it's from Allah, right? That what it means?
Yeah, it's very clear. If you want to go by what the Quran mentions, by what Islam teaches, and I'm using that word here very arbitrarily, but by what Islam teaches about those books, then the Bible should be only limited to the first 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and then the Gospel, the Injil, whatever that is. All the other books, the books of the prophets, all of the other books that you find within the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible or the Tanakh, whatever you want to call it, are not recognized in any way, nor ever even mentioned. Islam never mentions or acknowledges or recognizes important prophets like Isaiah, for example, completely absent from Islam. Daniel, completely absent from Islam. Lots of these figures are completely absent from Islam. The major difference in the canons, correct me if I'm wrong here. I want to get this right. So the major difference in the canons would be that aside from the New Testament books, even when it comes to the Old Testament books, there were certain editions or certain books, certain texts that were included in the biblical canon originally, which are still part of the Catholic canon and the Orthodox canon, for example, which were, however, in the Jewish context, by the Jewish authorities, not refuted, but not recognized necessarily as part of the canon for different reasons, such as that the language is a little bit too different, or that includes certain things that don't really fit with the general idea of the Bible, and so on. So these were removed from the canon, such as the Maccabees, for example. And the Protestant canon is very much in line with the Jewish canon when it comes to the Old Testament. And that's that. It's just a difference based on later analysis of certain texts that could be added but are not added to the canon. None of this makes any difference at all to whether these texts are authentic or not, whether the Bible in general is authentic or not. When it comes to the New Testament, it's even smaller of a detail. There is no dispute here. None of this has anything to do at all with the general authenticity of the Bible. This is completely irrelevant.
Yeah, and again, from an Islamic perspective, you'd have to say, okay, what's the official list? And following his reasoning, if 2 groups of Muslims came to different conclusions, you'd have an extreme problem here. Second problem, to be consistent, what Muslim source on the life of Muhammad could I go to where I wouldn't have literally millions of Muslims telling me not to trust that source?
Exactly.
In other words, if I go to, I say to a Sunni Muslim like this guy, hey, what should I believe? Oh, yeah, where do I find out about Muhammad? Oh, yeah, go to Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Wait a minute, there are millions of Shias who tell me those sources are garbage and can't be trusted. They tell me I have to read Al-Kafi or something like that. What do you think about Al-Kafi? Oh, you can't trust that. Okay, so Muslims disagree on their sources about Muhammad. This means I can't trust this stuff, right? That's the reasoning he's using. Protestants and Catholics disagree about the inspiration of certain texts. So if that's a problem, then you Shias and Sunnis disagreeing about your sources, that would be a huge problem, right? In addition to that, if you go back to early Islam, if you want to say no, if you have a disagreement, then you just you can't trust any of it. Okay. Abdullah ibn Masud, Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, learn it from Abdullah ibn Masud. Ibn Masud had 111 chapters in his Quran. He believed that Surah 1, Surah 113, and Surah 114 were not supposed to be in the Quran. These are prayers. These are prayers. In other words, the Quran is supposed to be Allah speaking to you. These Surah 1, Surah 113, Surah 114 are you speaking to Allah. They're your prayers. He said, these are prayers. These are not the Quran. Ubay ibn Ka'b, another person Muhammad said, if you want to learn, he was known as the best of the reciters among that first generation of Muslims. He had 116. He had the three prayers, 113, Surah 1, Surah 113, Surah 114. He also had Surah 115 and Surah 116, additional prayers. And then you had Zayd ibn Thabit, when you have all these different Qurans going around, Uthman orders him to compile a standardized version of the Quran. He sort of compromises, okay, I'll leave in 3 of the prayers, I'll take 2 out, and I'll take a middle position there. Point is, these guys don't even agree on what chapters are supposed to be in the Quran. So what would that be? Keep in mind, that's not a difference of opinion that came about centuries later where people are trying to say, okay, is this inspired or not? This is the first generation of Muslims can't agree on which chapters are supposed to be in the Quran. Is that a problem? Well, based on what this guy's saying, it should be a problem. I would be surprised if he knows this even now. I would be surprised if he'd ever heard that before even now, because they don't talk about it in the mosque, and he's clearly not studying anything apart from Dawah materials for his knowledge about Jewish and Christian sources.
That's what they do.
Fun stuff. Welcome to Dawah.
A very strong proof, in my opinion. Some can. However, you learn when you keep studying that there were other books just as old, just as, apparently authentic that were not included in the Bible. In fact, there's
What are they?
the Catholic Bible and the Protestant Bible.
What are they?
Which are different. In other words, 2,000 years of Christian belief.
What is there in the differences between the Catholic and Protestant canon which would affect Christian belief about Jesus? What? We got the same Gospel of Matthew. We got the same Gospel of Mark. We got the same Gospel of Luke. We got the same Gospel of John. We got the same book of Acts. We got the same book of Romans. We got the same letters to the Corinthians. We got the exact same thing. What? What is there? He just made it sound like there are all these different Gospels. Again, we both thought he was going with the Gospel of Barnabas or something right now. But
You see,
And there are
the
wild stuff.
Catholic Bible is so they have a completely different Bible from the Protestant Bible. How do we explain this?
authors in the Bible that are still unknown. And as I'm learning the historicity of the Bible, so
From
I can
VDOT
convince
pamphlets.
others of its authority, I am starting to have concerns, right? I'm learning what I didn't know, and going from certainty, I became more skeptical the more I learned. That process continued until I got to a point where I was upset that this isn't getting better, it gets worse. The more I go, the further I get. In retaliation mentality, I ask my Muslim
Where exactly is he going? He's saying as he goes further with this, he's not going anywhere. He's just as far as it's as far as everything that he is saying is a correct description of what was happening at the time. All he's doing here at this point is just reading a pamphlet by Ahmed Deedat. That's it.
Yeah.
He's not really studying anything.
And his conclusion is, I can't trust the Bible. And yet we already know, because that's what's on the thumbnail or the title or whatever it was, that the Bible convinces him to follow Muhammad because the Bible talks about Muhammad.
You see?
And I recall him going to like one of the stupidest passages you could possibly go to. We'll see. Maybe I missed something and there's actually something brilliant here. But guys, how is this possible that neither he nor anyone he's ever met, nor anyone who's watching the video, any of the hundreds of thousands of people watching this video, how come no one ever goes, wait a minute, you just spent the entire first part of your presentation attacking the Bible, and then you're going to defend Islam by quoting the Bible? How does this work exactly? Never crosses their mind how absolutely insane they are.
I ask him, well, tell me about the Quran, right? What's its historicity?
Oh, yeah,
so
here we
he
go.
brings a book that's got the Sirah of the Prophet, just kind of the historical background of the Quran. Very simple.
The Sirah? What? The earliest one you have is from more than a century after the time of Muhammad. That's wild stuff. So he says he went to the Sirah. That's interesting. So I assume it's Ibn Ishaq's Sirat Rasulullah, because that's the earliest one you have. That's very interesting. That had the satanic verses and so on in there. So I don't
That's
even know.
a very funny thing that he's jumping to. But right after he just argued that there are lots of inconsistencies and lack of verifiable documents and so on from early times, he goes to the Sirah.
Yeah, very, very interesting stuff there, guys. So to learn about the historicity of the Quran, he goes to the Sirah. Again, we're assuming he went with the earliest one. That would be Ibn Ishaq. That's more than a century after the time of Muhammad. That's where he goes to learn about the historicity of the Quran.
David, I just want to emphasize one thing.
What?
When the guy brought up Catholic and Protestant Bible, my mind immediately went to the difference in the Old Testament canon. But that's not the point. The guy's talking about the New Testament.
Yeah. He presented it as a problem. If you just watch that, you would assume he's talking about different gospels. That's exactly what.
Aren't the Catholic Bible and the Protestant Bible, in terms of content and books, identical to each other?
What, of the New Testament?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's saying something. He's saying, hey, there's a difference between the Catholic and the Protestant Bible. That's true. What did it sound like he's saying? It sounded like he's talking about different gospels, and that there are these gospels that are left out and so on. That's what it sounds like he's talking about. When no, there's no difference in the gospels or in Acts or in the letters of Paul or anything else. That's what I mean. Everything is misrepresentation. He's been at this for 34 years now, and this is how he explains it. And guess what? Guys, this is exactly the same. If you listen to Khalid Yassin or Yusuf Estes or any of these converts, and they obviously have no clue what they're talking about, and everything they got was from some Ahmed Deedat pamphlet back in the day. And it never crossed their minds to actually learn reality, because it is not difficult. It is not difficult. And matter of fact, I mean, Zakir Naik was actually better and more careful than Ahmed Deedat. He copied his arguments and so on and tried to actually fix some of the issues. But I mean, there was that time Nabil watched 5 minutes and counted 25 factual errors in what Zakir Naik was saying, right? Like everything he's saying is made up. And you have people that, the sort of guy we're talking about right now, he would be watching someone like Zakir Naik and just be in awe at the brilliant knowledge and so on. Never crosses his mind, is this guy correct here? Wow.
I just so badly want to go and pull this guy out of the screen and ask him just a simple question about the Catholic and Protestant canon.
He would have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't need it. Who's he talking to? Who is his target audience? A bunch of people who have no clue what they're talking about either. And so you just tell them, hey, there's a difference between Catholic and Protestant Bible. Oh, really? There is? What is it? Oh, they left all these gospels out. Could they prove Islam is the truth?
Wow, you are very knowledgeable. It sounds like you are a very big. You are head of Christian church in America, right?
Yes, you are Pope.
You are Muslim.
Okay, we put Pope converts to Islam after finding out Muhammadan Bible. Okay, so guys, they had this little Towards Eternity commercial here in the middle, but the first entire section of the video is attacking the Bible. Can't trust it, and I don't know if he's going to go into it right now or he's going to go into something else, but we have to get to how the Bible proves Muhammad. It's going to be awesome stuff. I'm sure this is going to be really powerful.
Opportunity.
And I take that and then I study what the Islamic sources say about the Quran. And it was very quick to come to the conclusion that it's a totally different historicity. The Quran is in Arabic. Indeed. It's in the language of the Prophet. It can be dated back to the time of the Prophet. It's been written down and memorized since the time of the Prophet. So its historicity is very simple, right? Doesn't make.
And you know what's funny? You know what's funny? We talked about this book earlier. When I compare the historicity of this book, Son of Hamas, to the historicity of the Quran, it's very clear to me that the historicity of this book is completely different from that of the Quran. When it comes to the Quran, for example, the historicities that we have is we cannot verifiably prove that that we can actually that the contents found in a regular Quran today are identical to whatever Muhammad spoke out of his mouth and recited to the people around him. Plus, it also went through a process of reciting things over a long period of time, people memorizing it and writing it down, and then coming together and selecting things and compiling them and so on. And we are then supposed to trust the end result. Whereas with this here, the author of this book is alive. He's with us right now. He wrote it. He even read it out loud and spoke it. And we can 100% verify the authenticity of this book. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this book is obviously better than the Quran.
I hate to correct you, but he says right there, it's on the screen, doesn't make one word of it true. So he's got multiple criteria, saying as far as its historicity is concerned, very straightforward historicity. So, couple problems there. One, if you're comparing it with the Bible, you're talking about dozens of books revealed over a period of 1,500 years on 3 different continents in 3 different languages, talking about stuff from shepherds and kings and fishermen and all kinds of other things. So I would say you're going to get a pretty different historicity with a book like that than everything going to, huh?
That's what I mean. Completely different standards, and you're
Yeah,
comparing them to
completely
each other
different
and saying,
standards.
"Isn't it better?"
Yeah. So that's one thing. The Quran is all supposedly revealed to one guy. So notice already you might find it interesting there, Mr. Meeks. With the Bible, you actually have a ton of different witnesses, right? Even if you're talking about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, okay, you have multiple different people confirming things about Jesus. The Quran all comes down to one guy saying he's got these revelations. It all comes down to one guy. You're taking one guy's word for it. But I just have to point out, as far as him saying, oh, the historicity of the Quran is very simple and straightforward. No, it's not. Right? You have Muhammad supposedly receiving all these revelations, then forgetting them. They're forgetting things. And when they would all forget things, they would say it's been abrogated. But sometimes they'd all forget something and conclude that it's been abrogated. And then one guy would remember it, and Muhammad would thank the guy for bringing that up and so on. You have, again, Ibn Masud had 111 chapters in his Quran. Ubay ibn Ka'b had 116. The Quran that you have today has 114. Muhammad's own companions couldn't agree on what's supposed to be in there. You had entire chapters of the Quran that were lost because Muslims hardened their hearts. In other words, they didn't recite them the way they were supposed to. Abu Musa in Sahih Muslim talks about 2 entire chapters of the Quran coming up missing, and he's warning the next generation of Muslims that they need to keep reciting so they don't forget more of it and don't lose more of it. You had large passages of the Quran coming up missing because in those first couple of years before they put it into a book form, some of the people who died in battle were some of the only people who had those passages memorized. And
where did they die?
I know you want to tell everyone. Go ahead.
In Yamama. That's where they died.
Yes, the Battle of Yamama, ladies and gentlemen. Large parts of the Quran were lost there when the only people who had those parts memorized died in battle. And you actually have quotations from Muslims saying that parts of the Quran, much of the Quran was lost in that battle and were never recovered after that. And this led Ibn Umar, the son of the rightly guided Caliph Umar, and who is a companion of Muhammad, that led him to say, let none of you say I've memorized the entire Quran. How do you even know what the entire Quran is when so much of it has been lost? Instead, you should say, I have learned what remains. I've learned what's left. That's him. Of course, you have so many differences and so many people complaining about the differences in the different Qurans that during the time of the Caliph Uthman, he decides to have everyone hand over their copies of the Quran, burn them all, issue a standardized version. Now, if this guy had heard from Ahmed Deedat that Christians did that with the Bible, they had to gather them all together and burn them all to issue a standardized one, he would say, you see that? That's proof of corruption. But you don't have that. You never had any centralized authority that could even do that in Christianity. It would have been impossible in Christianity. It was possible in Islam, where you have a central leader can say, everyone hand over your stuff. We're going to burn it all and issue a standardized versions. And even after that, you couldn't cover up the differences, and they had to end up with the different qira'at and so on until you get down to our time, and you have different Muslims in different parts of the world reading different Qurans. But I thought you had a problem with different textual variants. Didn't you? Didn't you have a problem with textual variants? He probably doesn't know one word of what I just said. Never crossed his mind to study, because Ahmed Deedat didn't talk about it. This is what we're dealing with in Dawah, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's see where he's going with this. Doesn't make one word of it true. He's saying, oh, but the Quran is so much simpler. No, their narrative is so much simpler. What they say is so much simpler. They say, oh, a perfect preservation right down to the letter, and they had it all written down, and everyone else memorized it, and now you've got it, and there's no differences anywhere. It's total lies.
Just want to point out that we're having a serious conversation and the whole chat is making your mama jokes for some reason.
Sad. And that's why I didn't want to say it, but someone else had to divert the discussion to these kinds of jokes. Sad.
One word of it true, but it does make it authentic. So because the two books were so different and the Quran didn't have the same issues, I would say, as the Bible.
The same issues. The Quran didn't have the same issues as the Bible, which the Quran affirms as the inspired, preserved, authoritative word of God. Dude, that's one thing you need to learn. Any issue, any problem you have with the Bible, that is a problem for your God and your prophet who affirmed it. So if you think there's one problem in the Torah or the gospel that Christians and Jews still have, that's a problem for your God and for your religion. If you think we've got something that's corrupt, then guess what? Then your God and your prophet were wrong. And you're an ex-Muslim now, but you don't even know because you literally know nothing we're talking about.
Got even more upset. I'm like, this is not helping. I'm hoping that everybody's in the same boat and I can just move on. But it didn't help. And so as I read more pamphlets of Deedat, one of them was Muhammad.
Look. Where's he going? The Deedat pamphlet reader, after finding out the Bible can't be trusted and has been corrupted, then he read Deedat's pamphlet, Muhammad in the Bible. Yay! Now I'm going to find out that Muhammad is a true prophet according to the Bible. All right, let's see what examples. Guys, I want you to write these down. He's making a serious claim. Apart from the Bible can't be trusted, it's corrupted, it's in the wrong language, and so on. He's making a claim here that Muhammad is in the Bible. Okay, let's just ignore the hypocrisy and inconsistency here. Let's see. He's had 34 years. Muslims have had 1,400 years, but he's had 34 years to find the best ones, and he's been familiar with the Ahmed Deedat powerful Dawah passages. Let's see where he goes.
Bible. It was just a little pamphlet that said, Muhammad's in the Bible. Why don't you believe in him? I'm like, I've been to church my entire life. I have talked to people, listened to people. I've never heard his name mentioned once. Nothing good, nothing bad. He has never come up in any topic ever. I don't see him anywhere in this Bible. So now I'm competitive with arguing with Deedat, his books. He's challenged me. So if you want a Christian to prove that Jesus is who they say he is, they would refer to Old Testament and say, hey, he's mentioned here. There'll be a prophet who does this. He comes from this area. He does this. He does that. And he fits it perfectly. Right? So how can you reject it? But it never says Jesus in the Old Testament. There's no Jesus mentioned by name.
That's the difference. That's the difference. That's the difference right there. Well, that's the difference right there. Islam argues, however, that Muhammad is mentioned by name in the Bible.
That's true. Yeah. And so he doesn't even understand that. Guys, if you don't understand what was just pointed out, supposedly Muhammad is mentioned by name, at least the name Ahmed, right? So he's supposed to be in there with a clear description and even mentioned by name, right? He's saying, well, you don't find Jesus actually mentioned by name, and yet you say that these prophecies are about him, so I can find the same things about Muhammad. Yeah, but Muhammad said he's mentioned by name. But let's go ahead and see. Let's see what his powerful Dawah arguments are.
Each time I compared the two, I found myself more favorable to Deedat's explanation than the Christian explanation. it becomes,
Let's
in
see
my
it.
opinion, overwhelmingly conclusive that the Bible from Genesis to Revelations talks about this prophet. It mentions a prophet will come from where he came, what he did, how everything
Where,
that's
where,
relevant
where?
in the
Okay,
prophet's
okay,
life
give an
is in the
example.
Bible. So
Where?
Give an
Where?
example.
He's saying
Example. Tell me now. Come on.
He's saying it. Everything from Genesis to Revelation, every single word is just Muhammad, 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 Muhammad.
The
Okay,
entire
where?
book talks about Muhammad from the beginning to the end. When it says in the beginning God created, it's clearly talking about Muhammad. It's preparing the stage for Muhammad.
It's even Muhammad who's doing the creating. Let's go ahead and see it. Let's go see. I don't recall. I only recall him giving one example here, and this is okay. So, but let's see.
I found that very, one, troubling, but two, it's like, maybe I'm the confused Muslim.
Yes, maybe.
You're definitely confused.
I now have probably 50 to 100 verses.
Okay. I now
Give us an
have
example.
probably 50 to 100 verses. What about Muhammad?
In the Bible that are very just clear. It has to be the Prophet Muhammad.
Clear.
For example,
Okay. If he has 50 to 100, everyone, it's clear. If he's going to mention one, he's going to mention his best one, right? He's not going to mention like his worst one. Can we conclude that? So whatever he's going to give here, it's going to be his best one. Let's see.
HMD in Hebrew, which would be similar to Arabic, it'd be Ahmed. The Ahmed of all nations will come, and he will do, his house will be greater than the former, which is switching from Jerusalem to Mecca. It calls in Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 3, it says the God came from Sinai, dawned from Seir, which is Palestine, and shined forth from Mount Paran.
He didn't even get the right chapter.
I'm kind of relieved because I was expecting him to go to the Song of Solomon.
Okay. Ready? He gave.
Where's my Deuteronomy?
You ready, AP?
Yes.
Okay. Let me back this up a little bit. So he gave one actual reference here. Deuteronomy, and he got the reference wrong. He's talking about Deuteronomy 33. Here we go.
Just switching from Jerusalem to Mecca.
Yeah, give
It
us the
calls
references for that nonsense
in
here.
Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 3. It says the God came from Sinai, dawned from Seir,
God.
which is Palestine, and shined forth from Mount Paran. Okay. So if God came from Sinai, that's a direct reference to Moses. If he dawned from Seir, Jesus' ministry was 3 years in Palestine. Very clear who that's referring to. Who shined forth from Mount Paran, right? And he came with 10,000 saints
Came with
with a
10,000
fiery law
saints
in his
with a
hand.
fiery law in
Who
his
might
hand.
that be? Well, we're
Okay. Ready, AP?
Wait, which you said Deuteronomy 33, 1 to 4?
1 to 3. I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to put it on the screen for everyone.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
There we go,
it's time to
AP. On
convert
the screen, on the screen, on the screen. Tell me, AP. We were suspect. He's got 50 to 100 references. Muhammad in the corrupt Bible. Muhammad in the corrupt Bible that you can't trust. He's got 50 to 100. We're assuming he's given us the best one. Here's what he gave us. Deuteronomy 33. Moses' final blessing on Israel. This is Deuteronomy. Ready? This is right before the end, ladies and gentlemen. The next chapter is 34, and then that's the end. And so this is Moses. Here's the amazing prophecy. It's the only one he actually gave a reference towards. Our Muslim friend. Here we go. This is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the people of Israel before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and dawned from Seir upon us. He shone forth from Mount Paran." Who shone forth from Mount Paran? AP, if you see Lord in all caps, what's that mean?
God.
That's, yeah, guys, when you see all caps, that's how they put, that's because they don't want to put Yahweh everywhere, right? But Lord in all
it's
caps,
God.
that signifies that they're talking about Yahweh, that in the Hebrew, this is Yahweh. Yahweh came from Sinai and dawned from Seir upon us. He, Yahweh, shone forth from Mount Paran. He came from the 10,000s of holy ones with flaming fire at his right hand. What is this talking about? Guys, they just went from Egypt all the way to the border of what would become Israel. The Lord accompanied them in a pillar of fire, a pillar of fire, right? So who came from Sinai, dawned from Seir, shone forth from Mount Paran? God, in an actual pillar of fire. He came from the
Yeah.
10,000s of holy ones with flaming fire at his right hand. How is he representing this? That it's Moses who came from Sinai and Jesus who dawned from Seir. And he says, this is Palestine. Okay, Seir is not a place Jesus was hanging out. That was the area of the Edomites. He shone forth from Mount Paran, another place they went by on their way from Egypt to the promised land in their desert wanderings. And he says that this is about Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. And that, of course, that the 10,000s of holy ones, that's referring to Muhammad with the 10,000 soldiers he went to Mecca with. And the flaming fire at his right hand is the Quran, the powerful burning law. This was his best example of a prophecy about Muhammad is something that Yahweh did, and he's saying that's Muhammad. So his best example of a biblical prophecy about Muhammad is him saying that Muhammad is God, and that Jesus is God, and that Moses is God. Three persons, one God. Oh my goodness.
Do you have a map to put on the screen of the Holy Land?
You can share your screen, can't you? You want to pull one
Can
up?
I?
You remember you
Can I?
actually drew it? You remember we actually drew the wandering, like because you'd have someone who left and went to Egypt by way of Paran, and we actually drew it. If you're interpreting that as Mecca, like the long crazy journey.
Yeah, I was trying to find quickly a map that lists all of those together, which is probably hard to find. But it's very simple. If you look at a map, you will have the Holy Land, Israel. You will have Sinai, which is very clear today. To this day, very clear where Sinai is. You have Mount Sinai, which is a very well-known location. So that is where Sinai is. The desert or let's say Seir is eastward, not south, eastward, quite close at the border of the Holy Land, once again in the region of the Edomites, in the Bible, found within the Bible, in the proximity of where everything is happening right there. And the desert of Paran is mentioned many times, quite close. It is a wilderness outside of the Holy Land, still within the boundaries. None of this is in any way related to Arabia, for example. What in the world does this have to do with his prophecy about Muhammad?
Pretty rough. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to pull up a random map that lists a couple of the places here. Bible map. Let's see. I'll have to transfer this over. You could look up one too, because you can share screen. Let me have to airdrop it to myself.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Bible map.
Inshallah.
Why is this taking so long to just transfer one little picture?
Inshallah.
Work, dang it. All right, so far we have him claiming that that God going by Mount Paran in a pillar of fire is actually a reference to Muhammad in Mecca. What evidence did he give us for this absolutely insane conclusion? None, because there is none. It's just something that Ahmed Deedat said at one point. And this guy did all sorts of very, very important research and so on. Okay, let's see. Let me get this up on here.
That's what they do.
Just to give everyone an idea of what we're talking about. Bible map. Where did it go, man? Okay, let me find this.
That's
when
what
it
they do.
downloads. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. This is what AP wanted to ruin the show. Okay, here we go.
Unprofessional. Unprofessional.
Okay, guys, see this map right here? Here, see what you have here? Wilderness of Paran. This is the Sinai Peninsula. Look, there's the Dead Sea. There's Hebron, Jerusalem up there. Notice where Mount Seir is. Right? Way down past the Dead Sea. Past the Dead Sea. Don't think you're going all the way down there, way down near Mecca. That is a long, 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 long way down there. So you have the Sinai Peninsula. These are places that you cross by, right? As you're going to the Promised Land. Where, in the name of common sense, are you getting that this is talking about? You've got the wilderness of Paran right there. Why should we think that this is talking about Mecca? Who's going to Mecca? Who's going down and hanging out in Mecca? Nobody. Nobody. Why would anyone want to go all that way down in the middle of the desert for no reason? So you have all these places, and they're right here. They're right there in the area where the Israelites were wandering in the desert with a pillar of fire. God appears to them in a pillar of fire. Moses talks about it, and they say, you see, when it says Yahweh did this, that's actually Muhammad. Dude is a total mushrik.
Plus, the funny thing is also when you read the actual passage in question, when you read Deuteronomy 33, the whole thing is about it's just addressed at the Israelites.
Yeah, he goes tribe by tribe. He goes tribe by tribe, talking about the Israelites. No, this is about Muhammad.
Having appeared from Mount Paran and then approached with them with the holy myriads from his right hand, he presented the fiery Torah to them. Indeed, you loved the tribes greatly. All its holy ones were in your hands, for they planted themselves at your feet, bearing the yoke of your utterances. The Torah that Moses commanded us is the heritage of congregation of Jacob. He became king of Yeshurun. And when the numbers of the nations gathered the tribes of Israel in unity. This is clearly about Israel. It has nothing to do at all with any prophecy regarding Muhammad.
And guys, just think about, seriously, like how insane this is. Guys, imagine I go to the Quran and it says, Allah did this. And I said, yeah, you see, that's talking about me or my friend Bob or something like that. You'd be like, what? No, it says Allah.
Well, we also call my friend Bob Allah sometimes.
Yahweh shown forth from this. You see, that's talking about Muhammad.
Yahweh sounds like Muhammad. So.
And that's it. That's his best one. I don't even remember if he brings up any more, but he gave that reference, right? He got the reference wrong. This is crazy, man. Let's take a couple super chats and then we'll see if he gives anything else. See if he gives any other powerful arguments.
How sick.
Kamala Harris is going to Phantom Tax America. Donald Trump is going to Haktua America. Kamala Harris Trump 2024. I understood like a third of that.
I mean, by people who are impressed by what this supposed Muslim convert they're just presented about the Bible and about Muhammad. Are you sick in the mind?
Mm-hmm.
Are you that mentally enslaved and intellectually subservient?
Mm-hmm.
And intellectually molested and ideologically molested?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotta be. So his strongest prophecy about Muhammad was one talking about what Yahweh just did and that all the children of Israel just saw. And Moses reminds them of it based on the idea is why they can trust God in everything they're about to go through. Why do you still trust? Why can you still trust God even when things get rough? Look, you just went through it. You know what you just went through. It's about Muhammad. It's Muhammad. Muhammad is Yahweh. My goodness, man. John the Presbyter says, got 99 names, but Yahweh ain't one. Yep, that is correct. Father ain't one either. We're about to see why that's a problem. Because if I recall, he brings up John 14. Also saw a Muslim convert on the bus today. She said, democracy creates oppression. My brain melted. Of course. Democracy will stop people from, will stop Sharia.
Well, democracy is kind of gay, but I wouldn't say it creates oppression.
David said he liked this guy's soothing voice. To me, he sounds effeminate. Draw your own conclusions. Well, yeah, he sounds a calming, I don't know, sounds like a psychologist. Wait, AP will only support perfection in a leader, proof that he's secretly a Christian. You see the truth. That is a good point. AP's like, no, Donald Trump pandered. I cannot. I insist upon perfection in a ruler. Aha. So the only ruler you would actually accept is the Messiah. Good point.
I will not put my trust in a savior that is pretending to be a savior and that is not something.
Issa says, I saw D-Dot versus Sharush, and D-Dot did know Arabic. That's interesting because I saw him. I don't know if he learned something later, but I saw him in a video saying, oh, never mind. Okay. Correction here. D-Dot did not know Arabic in his debate versus. That's what I wasn't thinking about that, but I saw D-Dot say in a video, I don't know Arabic. I was like, oh, okay.
D-Dot.
AP, I want to buy cool Jewish stuff, but I don't know the significance of all the things. Can you do videos about stuff like the forehead box with straps?
I would suggest looking up different
You could
things.
look up Jewish videos on that stuff, right?
Yeah. You could look up Jewish videos on that. Although not everyone is going for that and not living by their her standards and by their practices, Chabad is a very, very good source to learn lots about what Jews do and things that they use and so on.
No,
So-
you should learn everything from Ahmed D-Dot and Sneeko.
That too, secondarily, yes.
We must protect, who's that? Luce? Lucy?
Oh, yeah.
Luce? Who? From the Mohammedans and Atheists. Who's that?
You haven't seen the new Catholic mascot?
No. What is that?
The Catholic there's a new Catholic
I
mascot.
heard about that. I
named-
heard people saying we don't need a mascot and stuff. I didn't know what he's talking about.
named Luce. Well, it's for Catholics, not for you.
Oh.
So the Vatican just dropped an anime girl mascot named Luce. It's an anime character that is wearing a seemingly yellow coat or raincoat or whatever, and has a
Powerful.
cross and a pilgrim's stick and blue hair. It's kind of cute.
Interesting.
Makes me want to be a Catholic.
Yeah, me too. How to answer and annoy a Muslim when they say, we dress like Mary, we pray like Jesus, we follow Jesus more than you. Thank you, Dr. Wood and AP. Well, I would quote Jesus. If they're saying, oh, we pray like Jesus, I would quote Jesus' prayers, which are nothing like Muslim prayers. So it's total nonsense. If you're talking about we dress like Mary, say, okay, give us a description of how Mary dressed and show us how you dress the same. What did she wear? Niqab? Burqa? Show us that.
Can you prove that she wore these things?
Yeah. And also tell us why that's relevant. Like
It's
if I
so
dress,
funny
if I go out and dress like a samurai, what does that mean? That samurais are on my side? Like what? What does that mean?
That's exactly what it means.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it means. It's so funny because Mary would have dressed appropriately within her environment, her Jewish context, and Muslims simply ended up copying that. And now they're like, you see, this is what we do. This proves that they were Muslims. Brain damage.
It's extremely, extremely stupid. They had Middle Eastern dress. We still retain Middle Eastern dress because we want to bring everything back to 7th century Arabia. But take your pick. Say, hey, what did she wear? Did she wear the hijab? Did she wear the niqab? Did she wear a burqa? What did she wear? And give us your proof. You will find zero. You're not going to have any proof. You just say, oh, well, she probably would have dressed like a 1st century Jew, and so that would have probably included some sort of head covering or something like that. What's your point? What's your point?
Jewish, was Palestinian.
What's your point? Lots of cultures had head coverings. What's your point? Because keep in mind, we have descriptions of the pagans during the time of Muhammad. We have descriptions of pagan women wearing burqas. So you're dressing like pagans now, right?
Yep.
If you're saying, oh, we dress the same as who? Guys, you had a bunch of different groups in the Middle East. You had a bunch of different groups. A bunch of them were pagans. A bunch of them were polytheists and so on. They dressed in 7th century Arabian gear, which is what you insist going back to. Okay, show us that Mary wore a burqa. I could show you that pagan women wore burqas.
You're making a good point, and a point that people should be ready to admit going further, and acknowledging that every single group has adopted things, practices in terms of whatever they wore, how they covered themselves up, and so on, within their context, within their environment, within their greater environment. Jews took certain things that they did were very well known from different cultures, from those that they came from those that were that surrounded them. Christians adopted the Jewish way of life and took certain things from others. There was a lot of Greek influence. Muslims took a lot of things. Muslims took what they wear during the pilgrimage, the ihram. That is very much based on what the pagans used to wear when they would walk around the Kaaba. What does
all
it
their
mean?
practices, running back and forth between the two hills and circling the Kaaba and stuff. This is all pagan stuff. And you're
Nobody
right, the way they
should
dress.
make the claim. Nobody should make the claim that because you do a certain thing, the way these other people did it, that means you have more of a connection or more of a claim or more in common than others with them. It's a stupid claim to make. You could immediately take that claim and pervert it in the worst way, and it could still be valid and would really mess you up.
And the fact that what Islamic arguments always come down to, some silly, idiotic nonsense like this, that kind of shows you something about Dawah.
Jesus put his head on the ground.
Yeah, and then he said, Father, just like us Muslims never do, ever.
But ignore that part.
What about when Jesus looked up to heaven and prayed? That's exactly like Muslims never, ever do.
No, just ignore that. That doesn't count.
Bo Rudder says, I studied textual criticism, and none of the manuscripts confirmed what Muslims believe. That is true. You do not find any manuscript that gets you 1 inch closer to anything Muslims disagree with Christians about. I used to be a Christian, but then I realized we don't have a manuscript in Klingon. My faith was crushed. Got a winger fan here.
Yeah, you shouldn't mention 1 inch. And nowadays, it's a major source of anxiety.
1.8 inches closer to. Aren't Ahmadiyya those Muslim LARPers who hoped that by debating you, they'd be appreciated by normal Muslims, but Muslims kept hating them anyway? Well, they thought they were going to go in there and crush us. We're actually debating them again, I think in November sometime.
Yeah, next week.
But yeah, they thought they were going to go in and crush us, and then they would be the heroes of the Ummah for crushing David Wood and the apostate prophet, and then everyone would convert to the Ahmadi version of Islam. But it didn't work out that way. But maybe the next time. They've had lots of extra time to prepare, so maybe next time they're going to become the heroes. Ahmadiyya. Have you saw the news of Dana Abu Kamar winning human rights appeal after her visa was revoked for voicing support for October 7th? UK has fallen further.
Yeah, I have seen that her visa was revoked because she, after October 7th and October 8th, she said that she was joyful and all that. But apparently they made a case that, she wasn't referring to the actions of Hamas.
No, she was referring to the IDF and valiantly retaliating.
Well, she was just saying that she really likes what Mia Khalifa tweeted on that day. She was very joyful about that. So
yeah. In the meantime, Tommy Robinson criticized grooming gangs. Let's lock him up for another 18 months.
And let's send him to the worst prison known in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yep, where his options are general population, where he'll be murdered, or isolation unit, which is basically torture. You go crazy in there.
People are sick, man.
They are sick. Only getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. If he had any Christian teaching, he would have known that there was a sizable Jewish community in Alexandria, and they didn't know Hebrew or Aramaic. It would make sense to have it in Greek. Yeah, that's why they translate. That's why they ended up with a Septuagint and so on.
Hellenistic peeps.
Mm-hmm. Eusebius says there was an original Hebrew Matthew. That's what I was referring to. Unfortunately, the Jewish Christians were declared heretics by Justinian for keeping the Torah. Interesting.
Wait, what? Who?
What's what?
Who was
You're saying
keeping-
Justinian? Justinian was a Roman emperor. He's the one who kicked heretics out of the Roman Empire. He says the Jewish Christians, basically the ones what would be called the Judaizers, were declared heretics and so on. I don't know if there was still a Hebrew Gospel of Matthew at that point. The pastor wants 72 virgins. That pastor wants 72 virgins in Jannah.
72.
Which pastor? Urinating Broom says, every Muslim convert insists on judging other religions by Islamic standards. It's got to be all about a book literally written by God, the language of said book, Tawheed, instructions for everything. Yeah, that is interesting. Like, here's what our book is. Therefore, your book is not that, so your book has a problem.
That's the thing. Muslims are very ignorant in terms of
Very
what
racist.
in terms of what scripture is supposed to be by non-Islamic standards. So they expect the Bible also to be exactly in nature like the Quran. Oh, it was literally recited directly by a prophet through an angel given by Allah, word for word, with no human intervention. And if one word is slightly weird, then it's all false. This is what they expect, and I would expect this kind of analysis and this kind of response from a Muslim who's not familiar with what Christians and Jews believe in. But for a supposedly knowledgeable previous Christian to come here and give the same point that an ignorant Muslim would normally give, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, it kind of shows the importance of learning at least the basics. You already mentioned this, that if you're going to go out challenging Muslims who are trained by Ahmed Deedat to attack Christianity, you should probably have some clue what you're talking about as far as Christianity is concerned, and might even be a good idea to learn something about Islam so you know when they're lying to you. These are the things that, fortunately, even though everything else seems to be going wrong in so many different ways, this is actually one area where the world has improved. People are getting better at exposing Dawah lies. People are massively better off than they were in the 1980s and 1990s and so on. So that is something positive. Let's see. What language did Isaac Newton speak? English. What language did he write his Principia Mathematica in? Latin. Why Latin? Because it was meant to be read by a wider audience, since Latin was the lingua franca of academia at that time. Liar.
That sounds pretty racist.
Liar. Yes, it's in Latin. Why? Because he didn't write it. Some Latin guy wrote it.
His name was Osama bin Laden.
Yes, and he was a Latino. But yes, this is the reasoning we have to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. It's not even in Aramaic or Hebrew. It couldn't. Paul not preaching in Arabic is proof that he's a false apostle. That's true. Ha! Protestants got tiny Bibles, just messing, lol. Why is everybody speaking Arabic in the Quran, not their own languages? Yeah, everyone. It's weird. Everyone speaks Arabic when none of them would have spoken Arabic except Muhammad. So what Bible had the Council of Nicaea? No, the Council of Nicaea was a book. The Council of Nicaea was a book that was removed from the Bible, according to Sneeko. It's one of his reasons for converting. His reasons, his reasons were almost as powerful as this guy's we've been watching. As an Aramaic Syriac speaker, I can understand many words in 4 Gospels. The disciples wrote in Greek while spoke Aramaic. Luke, Matthew knew Greek. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Catholic Bible has apocrypha, inaccurate books. Ooh.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
Says
Ooh,
you.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Daniel, he blamed a Jew. That's a good one. He blamed a Jew. Daniel, he blamed a Jew. Lo Hikmah says, idea, I-bar as counter to chant to Kaibar. What's that mean?
Okay.
What's I-bar mean?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
Probably something perverted.
I got nothing to say today. Well, Charles Caleb Colton said, if you have nothing to say, say nothing.
Based.
The moist mouth is so reflective he can only criticize his own position. He tortures the facts, then waterboards his listeners. You two are the only thing making this bearable. Literal genocide. That's true. It's what we do.
Genocide.
Here's Goat Hub again. Catholic Bibles are bigger. Bigger equals better. Draw your own conclusions. Well, the Quran loses because the Quran's actually shorter than the New Testament. So
The Quran is the tiniest, just like Muhammad's.
little weakling. This little 1.8 inch book. Who says nothing to say? What?
Yeah.
Omar Harris says Muhammad is in the Bible, Matthew 7:15. Yes, that's what I was thinking when he was saying he didn't know about Muhammad in the Bible. That is correct. Matthew 7:15, that's Jesus warning people about false prophets who come in sheep's clothing but inwardly are ravening wolves.
The whole size comparison, though, by the way, I'm not talking about the male member. I'm talking about the scripture. The whole size comparison. So the Quran versus the Bible is something that is actually, I think, of some significance, because see, on one hand you have the biblical tradition where the belief and the idea is that God is for thousands of years, for many generations with his people, and they collect through his interactions with them a vast collection of instructions, of things that happened, of stuff to learn, and so on. You have a huge collection of things, and then you come to Islam. Suddenly, that entire collection, which Jews have and Christians have, is like, okay, we don't need that. We don't want that. We just have this one here. This one little thing here, which this guy would go out there and ram in his free time out there in front of the Kaaba, in my hood, in Mecca and in Medina. That's what we believe. That's the book now. That's all we need. We don't need the rest. So it's very, very weird that suddenly things switch from this, have this gigantic, ginormous set of instructions and history to, oh yeah, just this little poetry book. That's enough.
Mm-hmm. Cute little poetry book. Yeah, Jay Smith said for years, he said, you always make sure you've got a good sized Bible and then a tiny little Quran. It's a psychological impact. Like, oh, what's your cute little book say? Let me show you what my big strong book says. You see? Who says, your mama, who just said he has nothing to say, and then went on to say, your mama's so fat she only needs to say wah for fatwa. Pretty rude. Promo invented rap battles with his Surah challenge. That's true. Promo. That's funny. Promo is funny for Prophet Muhammad to start doing it more. Are the Dawa guys recycling the old arguments for Islam? I thought they'd admitted Muhammad arguments were debunked. We've been saying that they're circling back to older arguments that have been debunked already, because you destroy an argument 15 years ago and then they stop using it, and then people stop learning the refutation because they don't need it anymore, and then they start using the old debunked argument again. Watch another 15 years from now, after no one is familiar with the scientific miracles argument anymore, then they'll start using it. Did you know that the Quran talks about the Big Bang? Geography is haram, lol. Yes. Don't listen to, don't study, don't know anything about geography if you're going to listen to the Dawa clowns, because they are going to spout complete nonsense.
Geography's stupid.
AP, well, we also call our friend Bob Allah sometimes. Should be a soundboard clip. Also, D Wood, get a soundboard. Oh yeah, I got one. I just, it told me to use it. Well, it told me I have to update this thing, and then I did it, and then erase the ones on there, and I just haven't loaded all the clips back on there again.
That's very funny.
Now I know not to update when they tell me to update. Crafted says, I want you to stop being frustrated, so maybe you should do videos about things that make you happy, like Jewish stuff. That's a good point. We watch Dawa guys, and it's freaking annoying, and then we watch terrorist stuff, and it's annoying, and then hey, we should just watch like shofar videos and stuff.
It's funny. That's a good point. It's a good point. I'm very, very fascinated with the Jewish stuff lately. Well, actually, just because I wanted to I created a second channel, which was a music channel, where I wanted to just post some funny stuff and musical stuff. Primarily also because I thought, I always do this whole thing here. Maybe it's time to also have some fun and, reach people through a little bit of fun. And then, of course,
He just wants to have fun.
immediately, as soon as I did it, YouTube said,
No
nope,
fun. No
fun allowed.
No fun
We don't
allowed.
do that
You
here.
can only be enraged. It's all you're allowed
Keep
to do.
focusing on the rage. We
You
don't
just
do
have to be
fun
enraged
here.
at all times. Mhm.
We don't do fun.
Forehead box with straps, aka Teflon. I adore you pair, and the followers' comments are hilariously funny. Love, your #1 Jewish fan.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
You got that?
Yes.
Pervert is in the worst way, like Muhammad. That's true.
Yeah, the Tefillin goes back to the Bible. It is
Yeah.
actually one of those.
Yeah,
one
wear
of those.
the scriptures on your foreheads and so on.
It's one of the very explicit commandments in the Bible given to the Jewish people, and it's even referenced in the New Testament. You can find it in the Gospel. I think in the Gospel of Matthew, at least, where Jesus is
He says phylacteries.
talking about the teachers, the teachers of the Pharisees, and he's specifically saying. So he's referencing two things there, where he says, where he's talking about the tefillin, the boxes, putting them on your forehead and on your arm, as it says in the Bible, and about the fringes, the tassels, the tzitzit, these things here, and he says that he tells the people to do what they say, but not to do what they do, because they are exaggerating and doing lots of things for show. So that these are Jewish practices that are in the Bible and that are even affirmed by Jesus. But it's a commandment that you can find directly in the Bible about keeping the scripture on your head and keeping these fringes to remind you throughout the day of God expecting you to fulfill the commandments and so on. It's good stuff.
Marky Young says Trudeau is the true black man because he wore a blackface just like them, you see. So this is talking about we're more like Mary. Okay, well Trudeau's more like a authentic black man because he wore blackface.
That's what they do.
That's what they do. New to the stream, so thanks AP for repeating jokes. Yep, AP's good at repeating jokes. One of Daniel Hakikaqui's argument for Islam now is that carbon dating proves the Quran was written in the time of Muhammad, who is going to tell them how carbon dating works. Yeah, you can carbon date the parchment that it's written on and so on, but multiple other issues there, as far as the writing and so on. But no,
Dating is haram. Dating is haram. You're not
no
supposed to-
dating in Islam. It's only married. Now, if you talk about carbon marriage, then we'll do that. I guess we're all peeing like Adam or Eve before the fall. Does that make us perfect humans? Just wondering with that logic, doing stuff like others. Yeah, you can point to anything any group has ever done and then link them together according to this reasoning.
You have to pee exactly the way Adam peed.
Haj Ryan Al-Ghaslani, which Ryan Gosling says, Judaizing meant forcing Gentiles to convert to be saved, turning it around and saying the original Jews keeping Torah is Judaizing is not. That's actually, yes, you are correct there. I was saying Judaizers. I was assuming that's what you were referring to, because if you just talked about keeping Jewish traditions or something, Paul was fine with that. So I don't know how you declare someone a heretic when that would have been how the first Jewish Christians were. And Paul even said it. He says, hey, I get it. Some of you esteem one day as more important than others. Some of you esteem every day alike. Let each person be convinced in his own mind. So he was fine with saying, hey, I want to do this. I want to have this day set apart for this, or I want this, or eating dietary restrictions. He was totally fine with it. You're right. What he was against was telling the Gentiles that they have to convert to Judaism in order to become a Christian. He's like, no, you go to Jesus. What are you talking about there? So yeah, that is correct. But I'm trying to figure out on what basis could you declare someone heretical if someone is a Jew and is honoring Jewish traditions while believing in Jesus as the Messiah, while believing Jesus as the Messiah. I don't know how you would declare someone a heretic on that basis unless he just didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah, Jesus himself was doing much of the Jewish practices, observing them, and so were their disciples. So
Evil AP from a parallel universe. My struggle is to create living space in Dearborn. That does sound like AP. You want some living space in Dearborn.
that's really messed up.
D Wood and AP, how long have you two been collaborating and dismantling Islam? Keep up the awesome work. It's been a long time now, hasn't it?
I think it's been like 40 years or something.
I mean, you're talking like, we were doing Islamicize Me when you first contacted me. I think it was around the time we were doing Islamicize Me. So guys, whenever Islamicize Me came out, that's when I first recall AP contacting me.
Might have been about 5 to 6 years ago.
I would say probably 6, because 2018 sounds about right. Dynamuda was doing Muta in Utah with Duda. Why do you think that's funny? That's like the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And you started cracking up laughing at it.
That's why I'm laughing.
Okay.
It was unexpectedly stupid and funny.
Oh, here's one. Lord Stannis says, you ridicule him, but this is how Christians sound to non-Christians when they say Isaiah 53 is not talking about Israel, but about Jesus. Thoughts? No.
Isaiah
No.
53 it would be, if you want to start a big discussion here, that's where you go.
Yeah, let's
But
just
it's not the
compare.
same thing. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Oh, you're about a million miles away from being the same thing. Let's see. We'll just compare this real quick. Compare the Deuteronomy 33. Let me see. Isaiah. Let's see. Let's start in 52.
Isaiah 53.
No, let's just go with Isaiah 53.
Isaiah 53. That's where I like to go. That's what I like to see.
All right, so let's compare these real quick. Okay. So, and guys, this is actually an important issue here. As far as different kinds, examining arguments and finding them flawed in different ways, because you can have an argument and you just disagree about it, but you can say, okay, I see why you think that. And then there are arguments where you look at it and just go, okay, you're freaking insane if this is how you say it. So the claim is, well, if it seems insane to interpret this as Muhammad, what about when Christians quote Isaiah 53? So what do we have here? Okay, they say, the guy just said that this is about Muhammad. We go to the passage. This is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the people of Israel before his death. He said, the Lord, Yahweh, came from Sinai and dawned from Seir upon us. He shone forth from Mount Paran. If you've just read from Exodus onward, and so you know what this is talking about, it's very clear. It says Yahweh, it doesn't say Muhammad, it doesn't say prophet, not one word about a prophet, nothing here that could possibly be interpreted as Muhammad. And if you just read what it says, it clearly identifies who this is speaking about. This is speaking about Yahweh. And it's talking about stuff that happened. Not some prophet coming along many, many centuries later. Right? So the question is that like what we have here? Well, imagine we went to Isaiah 53. And it says very clearly that it was talking about someone else. Like suppose this said, hey, this is talking about the nation of Israel. This is talking about the nation of Israel. Okay, well, you'd have a point then. Doesn't say that. Now, keep in mind this goes back to, well, you have the 4 servant song. You have 4 servant songs and so on. And this particular passage starts at the end of chapter 52. But let's go and read 53 here because that's what you brought up. Who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him. So the main interpretations are, this is talking about Jesus, or this is talking about the nation of Israel, right? Because the nation of Israel was exiled to Babylon and so on, and went through some really, 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 really bad times.
That's what they do.
So, who has believed what he has heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. So Christians often interpret this as a description of Jesus at the crucifixion. He's so horribly disfigured. He's so horribly disfigured that you can barely recognize him as a human being. Or is this the nation of Israel being horribly abused? So we keep reading. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. So who's the him? The Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Who's the him and who's the us all?
Israel and all of those who are part of Israel.
Okay, so the Lord laid on Israel the iniquity of all of us, Israel.
No, on Israel, all of us, the members of Israel.
Okay, so who's him?
Israel.
Israel. So the Lord laid on him, Israel, the nation, which would include the people, the iniquity of all the people.
But where Israel would be the entity, or the collective, we would be the what they would say the people of Israel. So the every single member, every single individual.
All right, let's keep reading. He was oppressed. So he was oppressed. That's the nation, right? He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. That would be the nation, right? By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. So that would be the nation was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. Who are my people? That's the children of Israel, right?
Yeah.
On your interpretation? Okay. So the children of Israel, because of the transgression of the children of Israel, the nation was cut off out of the land of the living. Out of the land of the living. So the nation of Israel died for the transgression of the people of Israel. And they made his grave, the nation's grave, because the nation died. Keep in mind, you can interpret it like that, right? Because look at what happened to the northern tribes and the southern Judah. Look at what happened. So you could kind of say it died, right? You could kind of say it died. Or you could say this is talking about the treatment in Babylon or something like that. And they made his grave with the wicked. So the nation had a grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth. So the nation of Israel had done no violence and there was no deceit in his mouth. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush Israel. He has put him to grief when his soul makes an offering for guilt. So the soul of the nation of Israel was made an offering for guilt. He shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. So somehow the nation which died is going to prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand, in Israel's hand. Out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. So he shall bear. So this is the nation. This is saying that the nation of Israel would continue to bear the iniquities of what? Of the people of Israel. So the people of Israel are going to continue with iniquities, and the nation is going. This is just weird. This seems a little weird to me, AP, because if the nation.
Now you're getting it. Now you're getting it. You see, so this is the thing. of course, simply just exploring thoughts here. The
Me too,
funny
me
thing
too.
is that I agree with you very much on the fact that this text, like many other prophetic texts, can be interpreted in multiple different ways, and this is not really controversial. In fact, it would only be controversial if you go up, for example, against one side assertively and say this is definitely about this, and I can prove it to you. Why do you not believe in this? And then you can have an endless, fierce discussion about who or what this is actually about. But it's no secret that even in rabbinic history, in Jewish history, there have been major disagreements and major interpretations, major differences on what certain prophecies, including the prophecies of Isaiah, which have a very distinct language, are about. And solely the idea that Isaiah 53 or 52 or other prophecies would be about Jesus would not be in and of themselves. These ideas would not be in and of themselves considered, heretical or hugely problematic to a Jewish perspective. It would only become problematic once you go further into the implications of that. For example, just to give a short example, one of the most respected rabbis in Jewish history is Rabbi Akiva. He was born in the first century, 50 AD or so. So around the same time that Christianity was growing out and shaping. He is one of the most respected rabbis in the rabbinic history. He was one of the central figures of the Talmud. He had different interpretations. He, for example, is known to have interpreted many of the biblical prophecies and texts as referring to Bar Kokhba, who was the leader of the Jewish people during the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century AD. And he firmly actually believed that Bar Kokhba was the Messiah, and he was going to save the people of Israel, and was going to win independence, and was going to rebuild Jerusalem into a fantastic place, and so on. And major other rabbis disagreed with him and said, this is not true, we can't accept this, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't add up. Still, despite that disagreement, despite that major disagreement, despite the fact that he took texts like these and said these point at Bar Kokhba, they still said, okay, we cannot accept this, however, you are still one of the best, one of the most respected rabbis ever. And they still have major respect and reverence for him. So the point is, these are prophecies and texts and narratives that can be interpreted in different ways. And it actually, you can make sense of it. I can see how you can point at Israel with this, you can point at Jesus with this, and you can also point at different figures with this. There are also different interpretations among some rabbis in terms of who this actually points at. It's not comparable at all to reading Deuteronomy 33 and saying, oh, this is clearly about Muhammad. How can you not see it? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's my view. I obviously favor the Christian interpretation here. But let's go ahead and finish this, and I'll just kind of summarize why I would. But I agree with AP in that I do not regard it as, you don't come across as crazy to me if you say this is about, even though I can see some problems with saying this is talking about Israel, I can see the reasons for saying that this is Israel, and it doesn't sound crazy to me. The passages that Muslims go to find Muhammad in the Bible, it sounds like you sound insane to me. Usually when it says Muhammad right there in Song of Solomon 5:16, okay, you sound nuts to me. But let's go ahead and finish this. So yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him. He has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring. He shall prolong his days. The will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Out of the anguish of his soul, so the nation he shall see. The nation shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous. So the knowledge of the nation shall make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Now, the problem is this includes the people. And so it's weird to say the nation bears the iniquity of the people, because the nation includes the people. Like, who's suffering besides the people? The people. Therefore, I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many. So the nation bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. But the transgressors include the people of Israel. So it's something weird about saying that the nation makes intercession for the transgressors among the people. If it just said the nation makes intercession, you can kind of understand that. But when it's, I don't know, there's something that doesn't quite fit. With that said, it doesn't sound insane to me at all to interpret this as Israel. I just think that the Christian view is a bit stronger. And the reason, if you were just going with that, that would be one thing. But if you go back, I actually talked about this in my debate with, what's that guy? Dawa, something Dawa. Central Dawa. But if you talk this, because this is one of their favorite passages, the Lord's chosen servant. Behold my servant whom I uphold, my chosen in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He will not cry aloud or lift up his voice or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his law. That you can interpret as the nation of Israel, or you could interpret as the Messiah, or maybe some other interpretations, but you did have Orthodox Jewish rabbis who interpreted that as both. You had some who interpreted it as Israel, and some who interpreted that as the Messiah. And you have the servant of the Lord. Listen to me, O coastlands. So these are the 4 servant songs. Listen to me, O coastlands, and give attention, you peoples from afar. The Lord called me from the womb. From the body of my mother, he named my name. This is where it gets interesting. He made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me a polished arrow. In his quiver he hid me. He said to me, you are my servant Israel. Aha! He said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will be glorified. But I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing in vanity. Yet surely my right is with the Lord, and my recompense with my God. There it specifically says the servant is Israel. Now you do have to be clear. In these passages, they're talking about multiple different servants. Cyrus is listed here as a servant. The nation of Israel is listed as a servant, and there are passages that seem to be messianic. They're talking about a specific, talking about the Messiah as the servant. But it's kind of going back and forth in various passages about these different servants. But here's the thing. Right here it says Israel. You are my servant Israel. So it makes it sound like this is talking about Israel in context. But here, verse 5, and now the Lord says, he who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, and that Israel might be gathered to him. For I'm honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has become my strength. He says, it is too light a thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to bring back the preserved of Israel. I will make you as a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. So this is why you have the multiple interpretations, ladies and gentlemen. Says, you are my servant Israel, but then it starts talking about the servant Israel as if it's a representative of Israel who's bringing Israel back to God. And so it sounds like there's a person who is the official representative of the nation, and that this person is also called Israel. That's what it sounds like, and that's why.
There you also have the very interesting, very poetic narrative here in verse what is that? Which one is that? Where it says
What's that?
Jacob in the 5. Yeah. Now the Lord says, he who formed me in the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him and gather Israel to himself. For I am honored in the eyes of the Lord, and my God has been my strength. It's just the narrative of Isaiah, of the book of Isaiah, is a very, very distinct one. But yeah, this verse which identifies the servant as Israel, for example, and then further brings in the narrative of Jacob and Israel, is a very significant one, which can be brought up to argue that this is in reference to Israel. But then again, it is a prophetic book, and has a very distinct style, and you can interpret it in certain ways.
Yeah, so me and AP seem to be in agreement that this is seriously, that these passages in Isaiah and differences of interpretation between Jews and Christians, or I guess even Messianic Jews would be interpreting this as Jesus and so on. But I can look at this and I can say, okay, I believe that these servant songs are about Jesus, but I can see why you would interpret them as Israel, and you don't sound crazy to me at all. That's very different from going to Deuteronomy. It talks about Yahweh doing something, and Muslims come in and say, see, that's Muhammad.
You see?
The method that Muslims use, you could go to any passage and say it's about anyone. I could go to this passage right now. I see this is talking about my grandma. You could do anything. Because you could just make stuff up, and they don't seem to care at all. So I would say, Lord Stannis, going with what you said you ridicule him, but this is how Christians sound to non-Christians when they say Isaiah 53 is not talking about Israel, but about Jesus. Any Jews who are watching right now, I hope you understand why we would interpret, let's say, just going down to it, why we would get down to, surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God and afflicted, but he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. If I were a Jew who did not believe that Jesus is the Messiah, I would probably look at this. I think I would look at this and say, okay, I don't interpret this as Jesus, but I understand why you do. And when it comes to Islam, I look at it and I was like, I don't understand how any sane person could interpret this as Muhammad.
It could be talking about Piers Morgan too, because it says Piers.
There, you see, his name is right there, Pierce. Oh, we need to use that. We need to use that, AP. And say, look, how can you deny it? This is about Piers Morgan. It says Pierce is right there. This is the proof. The proof. Right? That's how they roll, right? Good one, AP.
That's what they do.
We need to do that. We need to just go through, find all random names and say, you see, this is the proof. This is the proof. All right, let's watch a little more of this because let's see if he's going to give any.
But wait, there's more.
It's Paran, okay? You have to, and people argue about this all the time, but it's abundantly clear in the Bible. It says that when Abraham took Hagar and her son Ishmael out and left them in the wilderness of Paran, and he grew
And
to
where
be
is the
an
wilderness of
archer,
Paran?
and then so where is Paran? Mecca.
Yeah, where is Paran?
How is that abundantly clear? There's a place. When you're going from Egypt to Israel, you go through the wilderness of Paran. How, in the name of common sense, is it clear that it's talking about Mecca? Give us the evidence. He's given none. What?
I just read this today earlier. He lived in the desert of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. I bet she didn't go down from Mecca to Egypt to get a wife. However, it describes very clearly that. I made notes of that earlier somewhere, but it describes it as staying in the wilderness of Beersheba, and then in the wilderness of Paran, which are considered in close proximity. Guess where Beersheba is? Guess where it is?
Medina? Is it Medina? I'm going to guess Medina.
Beersheba, you can still find Beersheba today. It's right there in the Holy Land.
Matter of fact, since he's talking about Jesus, says he lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. You go back just a few chapters to Genesis 14, and it starts talking about, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran on the border of the wilderness. What's this talking about? Wilderness of Paran. Then a few chapters later says, oh, hey, and she took a wife from the Egyptians, what is right beside the wilderness of Paran. And they say, no, we went down all the way down. They're talking about Mecca. Who, in the name of common sense,
You can find, if you read Genesis from the if you read the narrative about Abraham in Genesis from the beginning, it specifies very much the boundaries of the land that the book is talking about in the story of Abraham, when God speaks to Abraham and tells him explicitly what land God promises to him forever. And he says, look to the east and to the west and to the south and to the north. And it then clearly gives descriptions which are from Egypt to the Jordan River to up to the other river in the north, and to the southern part where it borders at the northern part of Arabia, where you find the wilderness, which is the edge of the Holy Land, the edge of Israel. That is where on the way to that edge, on the way to that border, to the southern border, before you get into what is nowadays known as the Arabian Peninsula, you will find Paran. It is still quite close to the Holy Land and to Mount Sinai.
Indeed, it is. And let me just bring up one more passage here. Look at what happened when Israel left Sinai. Look what happened when Israel left Sinai, ladies and gentlemen. Israel leaves Sinai. Where's that? Sinai Peninsula. In the second year, in the second month, on the 20th day of the month, the cloud lifted from over the tabernacle of the testimony, and the people of Israel set out by stages in the wilderness of Sinai. And the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. They set out for the first time at the command of the Lord. So they went from the wilderness of Sinai to the wilderness of Paran. So you're telling me they went 1,000 miles into the desert to down into Mecca? And AP, do they actually? I know they say that Abraham and Ishmael went down to Mecca and so on. And we've even seen the guy who says that when David hid from Saul, he went down and hid in Mecca or Medina or whatever he says, just complete idiotic nonsense. But do they actually hold, since it says it right here, Paran? Have you heard them say, I don't recall hearing this, but do they say that that Moses and the children of Israel all went down into Mecca?
Well, the funny thing is, so some guy like this is actually a funny thing to bring up. Some guy like this who explains why he converted to Islam because he was so fascinated by it will say Paran, and it's obviously Mecca. It's obviously referring to Mecca. He will say that, but when I had a conversation about this with the other Muslim apologists, what they suggested is that Mecca would be part of Paran, because Paran could include the entire strip from Israel down to the Hejaz up to Yemen, which is insane. You wouldn't give a single name or a single description for such a huge region at that time.
Pretty lame and terrible, everyone. This is Dawah. So think about this. This guy didn't even have the basic level of intelligence or curiosity to look up a Bible map.
That's what.
Where did he get the idea that Paran is Mecca?
It says so
From a map?
the holy book of the pamphlet of Ahmed Deedat.
He got this from an Ahmed Deedat pamphlet, and it doesn't matter how stupid or insane what the pamphlet says is. This guy just loved it, just loved hearing this.
Where did the prophet come from?
In the book of Ahmed Deedat, chapter number 5, verse number 2, it says, Paran is Mecca.
Paran is Mecca.
Did he come with 10,000 saints and a fiery love? Yes.
Yeah. Problem is, it says Yahweh, dude. It says Yahweh came from 10,000s of his saints, not with going to Mecca. Oh my goodness.
Quran says they knew Muhammad they would recognize Muhammad easier than their own son. It's because the revelations that have been revealed were so clear,
that was his clearest. That was the clear one. That was so clear, saying after they just went from Sinai, the wilderness of Paran, past Seir, and then it says Yahweh came from here, and they say, you see this clear? How could this be about anything other than Muhammad?
It's clearly about Muhammad.
Oh boy, this is Dawah, guys. This is Dawah. Just if you tell this guy how stupid his arguments are, you're the bad guy.
so perfect that you'd have to be ignorant of them to reject him.
You have to be ignorant to reject these clear prophecies. And that's what he gathered from his deep research of Ahmed Deedat pamphlets.
I can tell you this. This guy would never sit down and have a conversation about this.
Never.
With anybody who knows.
Hey,
what
can
they're
we say
talking
it right here? Hey, this guy's welcome to join us for a discussion about these points, right?
Yes, in fact, I would say that our community would be happy to pay him to sit down and have a discussion with us about this.
All right, so this is Khalil Meek. Khalil, open invitation. Open invitation. In fact, you may think that you are, there's two of us. There's one of you. You have our blessing to bring anyone with you from anywhere on the planet. Any Dawa champ you want, you can bring with you. You said you have 50 to 100 of these clear prophecies. We assume you gave our best one. We think that taking a passage about Yahweh right after they went to all these places, and it says Yahweh came from all these places, and say, talking about Muhammad, we think that's absolutely stupid and insane. And it looks like you only want to share this stuff with completely ignorant people. Open challenge, open invitation. Join us for a live stream. We will go through all these passages and we'll read them. We'll read them. You bring a list of all your favorite Bible passages that are talking about Muhammad, and we'll go through them. And again, you can bring any person you want from the entire planet to have your back.
And I'm sure, as I just said, I'm not joking. Such a noble pursuit, I'm sure, would encourage lots of people to also. Or even me and others to put something together and compensate you for the time that you spent talking to us. It is a noble pursuit, and surely would lead to good stuff, good consequences. So unfortunately, contrary to how Muhammad enticed his followers, we cannot offer prostitutes in heaven or on earth. However, monetary compensation could always be arranged. So definitely, I would love to sit down and talk about these things, because I think that you are a giant clown and an ignoramus, and we would like to correct you.
Yeah. If you had just said, "Hey, this is how I'm interpreting this," that would be one thing. But when you're saying this is so clear that you have to be ignorant to reject it, that's a strong claim. Those are strong claims. So, open invitation. And if you really care about people and guiding them, and you believe that your arguments are actually strong enough to be subjected to scrutiny, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Lots of people here watching. We even have Muslims who watch and so on. So be powerful, powerful dawah. Are you going to do it? Of course you won't, because that's dawah. Dawah now is running from anyone who knows the dawah script.
Why are you saying that, man? Tomorrow he will send us an email and say, "Hey, I saw your invitation and I am happy to participate."
Yeah, I'm fully expecting that to happen tomorrow. All right, this is we're kind of only halfway through this clip, so we're not going to watch it to the end. Let's just see if he says anything of value here.
So then it became an issue of, well, still, that Jesus is so overwhelmingly profound in Christianity. I mean, he is the religion. I mean, the religion is about him, and it is directed through him. So,
but then I found out
thinking,
that
how can I give up Jesus?
More about Jesus than Christianity.
We love Jesus more than the Christian.
Do anything else. That just doesn't commute. You can't do that. So then I learned, well, another book that I wrote was Jesus, a prophet.
This guy does all his research from pamphlets and booklets of Ahmed Deedat. This is where he gets, guys. I'm not trying to be deliberately insulting here. Deedat is one of the biggest liars I've ever come across in my life. And I've run into a lot of horrible, horrible liars. Deedat is one of the most ridiculous, idiotic, nonsense spouting liars I've ever seen. This is a guy who understood. He understood what I call the 99-1 rule. If you're talking to 10,000 people and only 1% of them, maybe at best, is going to look up what you're saying, 99% of them are just going to mindlessly accept your stupid thing that you just made up. It's in the best interest of the ummah to keep doing that, because the 99% can always drown out and shout down or murder the 1%. And therefore, just keep depending on this. Just keep depending on this. That's Ahmed Deedat. And here you've got a guy, and then I read the next Deedat booklet, and it told me all this stuff. Yeah, Mecca, that's Paran. That's Paran right there. That's where Moses went with the children of Israel. They're hanging out in Mecca. They're hanging out in Mecca. That's what they were doing. It's the Deedat said it. And everything that comes up, well, then I got another Deedat booklet. This is embarrassingly terrible, guys. This is embarrassingly terrible. And it's just such a perfect example. Guys, when we see someone, this Christian preacher converted to Islam, you look at this guy have any clue what he's talking about on Christianity? No. He was planning on studying this stuff in the future at seminary and so on. Never got around to it because that got derailed by Ahmed Deedat pamphlets. And for some reason, Muslims love this stuff. They love the stories of when Dawah is successful in finding a completely gullible person who is completely ignorant about Islam and Christianity. And we found a guy who's going to believe everything he reads in an Ahmed Deedat pamphlet. This is their dream convert. They love this. And it's just pathetic. Do we need to go on with this?
He's not. No.
Okay, so he's about to tell us about Jesus, a Prophet of Islam by Ahmed Deedat. Embarrassing. But again, open invitation, Khalil. Open invitation. If you want to run us through this stuff, open invitation. You're welcome to it.
If
Bring anyone you want. Anyone you want.
humiliate us, do it.
Matter of fact, bring those towards eternity, guys. Bring those guys. Wow.
We are towards eternity. We will say that we of course believe that Jesus. We Muslims, we love Jesus more than even Christians, and we know that Jesus is prophet. Jesus says in the Quran,
Powerful stuff. Godhub says, there is a video by someone named Alec Gunter calling you a racist Christian, David. Lol. Oh, dude, calling me a racist. That would be so original and powerful. I should check that out there. Alec Gunter. Never heard of him. Isaiah 11 defines root and shoot as the Messiah. Same words about the suffering servant at the beginning of Isaiah 53. Yet there are... I'll say there are more reasons there are additional reasons in Isaiah for interpreting the servant as the nation of Israel, but there are also more reasons in the book of Isaiah for identifying the suffering servant of Isaiah 53 as a messianic figure, or definitely as Jesus. So again, see the reasons for disagreement. I don't regard the non-Christian interpretation as crazy or insane. In fact, I would say it's the second best interpretation, right? Like, hey, I believe this is about Jesus. If that were off the table, I'd say, okay, I see some difficulties with saying this is the nation of Israel, but I see the overall case. That's very, very different from saying, look, it says Yahweh here. The only person Yahweh could be is Muhammad. and again, it would be one thing just saying that, that's my interpretation. It's not. He said, it's so clear. It's so clear. How can you have to be ignorant?
You have to be stupid.
Stupid.
My professor said that early Christians having Jews because they didn't accept Jesus inherently led to the Holocaust. I sort of disagree. Thoughts? Yeah, that seems stupid to me. That seems stupid.
Far-fetched.
Yeah, you have had persecution. Matter of fact, you had persecutions, in both directions. Because when the Christians were completely outnumbered early on, you had some persecution from Jews against Christians who were taking the wrong Messiah and so on. You had tons of Christian persecutions of Jews over the centuries. As far as by the time you get to the Holocaust, it's not. I mean, you of course would have people saying this and so on, but the people steering the Holocaust, they weren't sitting, they got Jesus. Let's go wipe these guys out.
But the people...
Which, keep in mind, from a Christian perspective, it wouldn't even make any sense, right? Jesus said, you have to get back at these guys? Or did he say, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing? So, which was it?
Wasn't it precisely what Jesus said? Wasn't it precisely what Jesus is reported as saying on the cross as he is there, as he is being put to death? Is he not quoted as saying, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do? Of course, you have a history of, it's undeniable, you have a history of persecution. When you have two groups that have a major disagreement over something so fundamental, which also involves blood at some point, you will have probably major problems along the way, and as such, there was, of course, major persecution from the Christian side against Jews. There was also persecution in the early days from the Jewish side against the Christians, although it's hard to believe nowadays. It's recorded in the even in the New Testament, if you read it, and also in the Jewish history. And then later on, it turns around, and the Christian sides start persecuting the Jewish side over different things. And then in the Christian history, there were these things called the disputations, where they challenge Jews to come out and explain certain things that the Talmud say. And then the Jewish representative comes out and gives the explanation, and the problem is supposed to be solved. But then they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. However, we still don't accept your explanation. Now, please, everyone, convert to Christianity or die. So things like these did happen, but none of that is related to what the Nazis intended to do. The Nazis were not religious. They were not Christian. They had no regard for Christianity or for Jesus. You have multiple texts and records from Goebbels and other high-ranking Nazis describing Jesus in terrible ways and describing Christianity in terrible ways. It's Goebbels himself who described Christianity as a sickness and as weak and dumb, and he even said that it is Jewish. It is part of the Jewish race. So you might want to connect the Nazis to Christianity in their persecution of Jews, but Goebbels himself hated Christianity, and one of the reasons he hated Christianity was that it was Jewish, a Jewish religion. According to him, Hitler thought it was perversion. He apparently compared it to syphilis and so on. So these guys were really messed up people who did, of course, use some Christian sources like Martin Luther to rally support from Christians, but it didn't have much to do with Christianity.
That is correct. You have a groper saying they had been kicked out of over 100 countries. Must be a reason why. We understand those reasons. Yeah, we understand what the actual reasons are. You have historically Jews who either would integrate or wouldn't integrate. And if they didn't integrate, people complain they're not integrating. And if they did integrate, they say, look, the Jews are now trying to integrate. But if you have a group that says, hey, we are our own thing in this country, and we are not going to just be what everyone else happens to be, that does two things. One, it preserves your people. Because keep in mind, when the Assyrians and the Babylonians and so on had problems with people and deported them to other nations, those groups would lose their national identity, right? Like, where are the Ammonites and the Moabites and all these other groups? They lost their national identity. In other words, they were taken somewhere else, and then they ended up blending in. The Jews would remain Jews where they went. And there were other things involved, like Jewish rules and regulations and restrictions and so on, which kept them a distinct people, but also pushed them into certain trades and away from other trades. And then you had the non-Jews who would say, hey, you Jews are only allowed to do this, that you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the Jews would kind of do whatever they had the ability to do and so on. Eventually, they're in certain trades, jewelers and things like that. And then you've got these Germans coming along. Look at this. They're not like the rest of us. And they're sitting here and they're just, they're dealing in diamonds and things like that. Oh my goodness, we just need to, they're parasitic. They're not doing the same things that everyone else is. And so they portray them as parasites and so on. And then at some point you might say, and they killed Jesus. That's why we're mad at them. But no, no, they regarded them as some sort of weird genetic anomaly. And what's crazy is they kind of had the same mentality that you see among people today in terms of like, they're inferior, but they're also superior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have this, we keep telling them to pick one. Either they're these inferior, stupid, weird beings, or they're these masterminds who are controlling everything behind the scenes. But it's weird to simultaneously be saying both. And you did have that as far as Jews doing all this plotting and this brilliant plotting and controlling the world, but also being genetic parasites and so on. Everyone always finds a reason to hate the Jews.
I said it before. If the Jews are so advanced and so great that they actually manage to control the world despite being only 15 million people or less, they should control the world. Seriously.
Yeah.
But I just want to say two things in response to this idea here, which is one of those is the most widely persecuted group in the world today, statistically speaking, are Christians. So if you're going to say that that because certain people are kicked out or persecuted around the world, that means that there must be something to it, they must be evil or something like that, are we supposed to conclude now that there must be something about Christianity or about Christians? Doesn't mean Christians are evil. Doesn't mean Christians are bad. Christians are demonic or whatever it is. Doesn't mean Christians are sacrificing children, which is why they are being treated that way.
And it's interesting because the reasons will be completely different, but people will always find a reason to go after Christians. And why is that? Well, if you're a minority Christian and you are refusing to integrate to the Muslim population or whoever it might be, people just end up having a problem with you, similar to Jews. But what's interesting is wherever you go, like if you're talking about communist China or communist countries before the large scale collapse of communism. If you go to North Korea or something like that, they have a problem with Christianity because religion is the opiate of the masses and so on. Christians are standing in the way of the flourishing of their communist utopia and so on. You go to the Muslim world, Christians are proclaiming Jesus is Lord, and so this is haram, and Christians have to be subjugated. Even if you go to Western nations with the new atheists, it's Christians are going to stop science. That's why we have to stop them before they destroy science. Everyone's always got a reason, but it's similar with the Jews. If you want a reason to hate a group, you can always find a reason to hate a group. Pretty straightforward.
And the second thing I want to add very quickly is Jews are unlike any other group in the world, in the history of the world, in history of Europe. Lots of other communities that existed were simply when they became a minority and they were encountered by a majority, like the Christians, they said, "Oh, okay, you know what? How about yeah, let's slowly convert, let's slowly just integrate and become part of it, and so on." Jews were generally not like that. Lots of other groups with the Islamic invasions, with Islam taking over, either went into one of two directions. Either they went into complete isolation and secrecy and esotericism. You have, for example, tiny groups still existing in the Muslim world and other places like the Mandaeans, a tiny group that most people have never even heard of. They still exist because with the growth of Christianity, and then especially with the growth of Islam, they adopted this practice of completely shutting out the outside world and keeping everything that they believe and do to themselves and living as a tiny community and completely forbidding interactions with others, intermarriage with others, and so on. The Samaritans are still in existence because they adopted such a way, although they are in very low numbers. They almost went extinct. The Jews went a different way. Instead of shutting down or converting, they still continued existing, and they adopted a semi-closed way, which is, guys, let us practice, let us be proud, let us be happy, let us still do all the commandments, let us dress as Jews. However, let's just, for the sake of our own safety, make sure that we keep to ourselves and don't get into discussions with others. Don't get into religious debates with others. Don't get into discussions with others. But they had a very, very strong tradition of holding on to the covenant and continuing to exist without ever agreeing to convert to a different religion or letting go of their beliefs. In fact, you could argue that the last 200 or 300 years were the first time in Jewish history where there were large groups of Jews letting go of Jewish tradition. That was when Europe started adopting policies of integrating Jews into society and basically giving different religious groups rights and considering them part of your nation instead of a separate group. This kind of led to secularization attempts and to reform Judaism, which started with certain Jews letting go of their traditions and all that, which is, in response to that, Orthodox Judaism, for example, started rising and growing, which is an attempt to hold on to those traditions. But specifically this whole struggle to continue holding on to your traditions and continue holding on to your identity is something that made the Jews very, 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 very different and very resilient. And humans are humans. They generally don't like it when some people are different and want to continue being different. It has nothing to do with what they are doing.
So, and matter of fact, it'd be good to have that Douglas Murray comment when he said, in effect, it didn't matter what the Jews did. People would hate them no matter what. So he said, when they were poor, we hated them for being poor. And then when they became rich, we hated them for being rich. When they didn't integrate, we hated them for not integrating. When they integrated, we hated them for trying to integrate. When they were stateless, we hated them for being stateless. And then when they got a state, we hated them for having a state. And at that point, when you hate people, no matter what they do, and you can say, we hate these people, look what they're doing. And then they can turn around and do the exact opposite. And then you'll say, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're doing this. We hate them. Kind of looks demonic. Kind of looks like there's something demonic not about them, about your hatred of them, I just have to say. And I would have a similar idea about Christians in the sense that you can understand it in terms of just, if you have a group that is not like a different group, then maybe the other group will hate them and so on. But when it doesn't matter what people do, you just hate them. I don't know. Seems like there's something else involved. And you said AP, the agnostic, agreeing that everything is demonic here.
Okay, look here. Absolved Soul says, AP, you need to look into the history of money lending. The Jews are not innocent.
The Jews. Oh no, but other people are.
This is such a
the
typical
Jews were
example.
the only ones who ever lended money, you see, and that's why we blame them all. The Jews.
You know what the funny thing is?
What?
When people mention money lending and how that historically led to certain messed up things, what I think of first is not the Jews. What I think of is the Knights Templars, a Christian crusader group that came into existence for defending Christianity and that did lots of things for Christianity, lots of things for Christendom. They were persecuted and eventually brutally tortured and forced to confess to to alleged, idol worship and things like that, and then summarily executed and eventually abolished and went into oblivion. And then people started conspiracy theories about how they still exist underground and they are basically the Illuminati, they control everything and so on. It's not just Jews. You can do this to anyone. People did, a French king did this to the Knights Templars that were a genuinely honorable group of crusaders, an order of crusaders, because he was looking for a reason to accuse them of something, because they were working as a bank at that point, and the French king was owing them too much money, so he had to look for a way to get rid of the situation. What best what better way than accusing them of secretly leading a cult of idol worship and insulting Jesus day and night, and possibly sacrificing children, and engaging in orgies and things like that, and then torturing them collectively in public and making them confess to these falsehoods, and then executing them to then take all of their property? Problem solved. Similarly, people have done these things to Jews, for example, or to other groups. Jews were generally not allowed to participate in certain parts of society that other integrated parts of the population were busy in. So Jews went into different things, like, I don't know, taking care of money or estate or things like that. So your European society, for example, forced Jews by kicking them out of their own circles to adopt practices like taking care of money. And then when things got tight, they were like, wait a minute, why do Jews have all the money? Something must be wrong here. Something must be wrong. Let's kill them. Why do you think they have all the money? Why do you think they have all the money? How do you think it got?
Well,
So stupid, man.
let's see. Read The Conflict of the Church and the Synagogue, a study in the origins of anti-Semitism by James Parks that explores the original Jewish Christians.
Alhamdulillah.
The people of the world were never healed by the stripes of Israel. Their suffering never does anyone else any good. God curses those who curse Israel. So Isaiah 53 can't be about Israel. I don't believe Isaiah 53 is about Israel, but I think you could make an argument as far as about that part. They had an idea of like one person's or group's suffering kind of being a kind of atonement for others. So what you could say is, one, you can interpret Isaiah 53 as talking about the people and future generations who were somehow atoned for by what happened to Israel. Or if you're connecting it to Israel being the light of the world or something like that, then you can say like their example somehow led to something for the rest of the world. But I wouldn't know enough about their interpretations to respond to specific objections.
But the people.
D. Wood, I caught your stream with the debate between Dr. Brown and Rabbi Shmuley. The performance of the rabbi was so disgraceful that I lost all respect for it. Yeah, I thought it was weird too, because I grabbed that debate specifically because I had seen another debate where Rabbi Shmuley was very good. And so that was just weird. And so we watched it and I was like, whoa, this guy sounds like he's like everything is an appeal to emotion here. So I don't know what happened at some point.
Rabbi Shmuley is very unpopular among Jews. There's this whole thing going around, like among Jews, especially Israeli Jews. Like
he was the guy for many years. He was the guy, man.
but you will have lots of Israeli Jews saying, "Wait a minute, who made this guy popular? How did this happen? Like, when did we make this guy popular? Who did this?" Because they don't get it, and they don't. People generally don't respect him. They don't want him to represent them. But he kind of got popular with the whole celebrity environment in the West, in America, and all that, and has become kind of a representation of Judaism. But with all due respect, I don't know. He's not been he's not been great.
Stop hating. AP always has to hate on everybody. Leprechaun says, I'll make a Barak and get away. Verses in Quran. They're magically delicious. Hearts, clovers, diamonds, horseshoes. Petra is the real Mecca. That is a theory. Isaiah 53, not speaking of Jesus as he cried. Yeah, that would be the problem of hyper literalistic. If you're interpreting, he didn't cry out as Jesus never cried out or something like that. It's like when he says, open not his mouth. If you're interpreting that as his mouth stayed permanently closed his entire life, I'd say you're being selectively hyper literalistic. AP's gaffe proved that Muslims were right all along, you see. Not sure which of the many gaffes of AP you're referring to.
I do gifts all the time. I love gifts.
Carlos
I love
says,
gifts.
look up Martin Luther's book on the Jews and their lies Hitler used as a blueprint for his hate on the Jews. Hitler had contempt for Christianity.
There is one thing that is correct about this, which is that the Nazis did use Martin Luther as for propaganda. However, they did so because they knew very well to use propaganda. That is how they became successful. It was their goal to endure Christian authority until the end of the war that they were engaged in, and to then seize all Christian autonomy and collect it all under a new form of Christianity, which was called German Christianity or positive Christianity, which would remove all Jewishness from Christianity and would abolish the Protestant church and get rid of the Catholic Church and only make one Hitler Nazi church. This is what the Nazis were all about. But yeah, Martin Luther had some problems, and Lutherans today, for example, point out that he had despicable ideas in different ways, especially toward the end of his life.
He seemed to go insane later on in life.
Yeah.
He went mental.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he changed his mind about the Jews because he was going mental, or if he just changed his mind because at first he thought, oh, okay, now the reason the Jews were rejecting Christianity is because of the heretical views of Catholics and so on. And so now that they get the pure gospel, now they're going to want to convert. And so he said positive things. He said positive things and was condemning the persecution of Jews and so on. Then, of course, they didn't convert, and he became increasingly hostile. So he either has one of those personalities where, okay, I'm going to open the doors and if you reject me, I hate you. So he either had that kind of personality or he had something where he went mental over time. But yeah, he had very favorable view of Jews and then changed to pretty intense hatred of Jews. But as far as this like being somehow central to Nazi, AP, were those Goebbels quotes from the other day? You were reading quotes. You were putting them up on the screen, talking about how this is all part of the plan. Yes, we have to kind of pretend that this is all Christian for now until we have until it's smooth sailing, and then we'll and then our position is going to become more clear.
Goebbels' diary is very is a very reliable and authentic one. Hitler himself advised him to keep his diary and to make notes of things, of important things that they talk about. So he would always write into it, would always note whatever they did during the day, whatever they talked about. And he had notes specifically on the church and on Christianity several times. And yeah, there is a passage, for example, where he says that the Führer agrees about the church, but for now the moment is not ripe. For now, we have to tolerate them, but once the time comes and once the war is over, then we will have to get rid of the entirety of the church and all that. And then other parts where he says, where Hitler instructs Goebbels to pay his thing to the church, to be a member, despite the fact that they both think it is a bunch of nonsense, because it keeps the Christians at bay and makes them support the Nazi party. Only for that, once the war is over, matters will change. So they kind of had a similar approach to what the Soviet Union was doing. They didn't initially outright start with hostility toward the churches. They initially tolerated the churches and then slowly were wanting to get a grip on them and go, that's what they were doing. This is what these sick people do. Typical atheists. What do you expect?
Pastor Prime here says, sounds like Muhammad. I think he's definitely referring to Muhammad as far as, hey, I like Jews and Christians, until they reject him. And that's why I brought it up as a possible personality, because there are those personalities, right? There are the guys you run into, and then they define whether you're good or bad based on how you're reacting to them. like Andrew Tate's like this, right? Like if you mindlessly affirm everything, then Andrew Tate will praise you and shower you with praise and so on. If you disagree with him about anything, you're horrible and evil and you're a servant of the Matrix and so on. And so I don't know enough about Martin Luther to make a call on his personality, but maybe someone else does. And basically, guys, we're trying to figure out if, like, did he just have that personality? Like, hey, I'm open to you until you decide you disagree with me, and then I hate and despise you, or did he go mental, or was it something else? Don't know.
I know that he had a very dramatic speech that went, "I have a dream," and then he got shot.
Powerful. It was powerful stuff. And here we have D. Wood. There's a claim circulating from a certain black sheep that you're a false prophet. For clarity, are you or have you ever claimed to be a prophet? If not, then black sheep, feel free to offer an apology. I'll go ahead.
I'm the prophet.
AP is the apostate prophet, and I'm the prophet against the stupidity of black sheep. I'm here to condemn the stupidity of black sheep. I hereby condemn it.
Black sheep. Have you any wool?
All right, AP.
What?
Anything else?
Is it already time?
Yeah, it's about time to roll. Been going for a good 3.5 hours. Good 3.5 hours. There's more to that video. People, if anyone wants to see any more brilliant insights by Khalil Meek, the link is in the description box. Notice, guy says, hey, I have all these reasons for becoming a Muslim. We go through his reasons. They seem pretty terrible to us. But the link is in the description box. I share it there for all to see. See if you find any powerful reasoning by Khalil. All I gathered was if you base your beliefs on some Ahmed D. pamphlets and you don't bother to actually try to understand Christianity or Islam, the Bible or the Quran, then you will conclude that Islam is the way to go. And that is true. That is true. The 99-1 rule. Powerful stuff.
Yeah, what I got from it is basically, if you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends. And
yep, something along those lines. And by friends, he means Ahmed D.
And goats.
And Zakir Naik.
Yep, that's what they do.
Fun times. Someone said you're not supposed to be blowing the shofar after dark. Is that true? You heard that?
I don't know. There's a tradition to, you're supposed to primarily do it around the time of the new year. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just got it for fun because I like it.
It's good. It's good. Powerful stuff. And finally, we see AP disavows Luther and D. Wood hates the black sheep. They're racist as a Turk. You're racist against white Europeans, especially Germans. And I have a problem with the black sheep.
I've always liked something about Luther because I've always had some sympathy with people who go against the flow.
No, that's the thing. Yeah. You can say, hey, you were totally right on this, and you're totally screwed up over here. And and you can even say, hey, I disagree with you. You're saying some completely insane stuff, but I respect your balls.
Balls.
I respect you. Yeah. So yeah, that is true.
Got some balls right there. Yeah.
Yep. All right, everyone. We will be back this weekend with some powerful stuff. You will see. You will see, or else.
Seeing is believing.